All right, welcome today to Toxic Tuesdays. Yeah, we're doing a thing and we're going to try it out and we'll see if it works. If it doesn't, well, you can yell at me down in the comments like you might anyway. So, when we're dealing with this piece of Toxic Tuesdays, we're going to be focusing on some of the negative pieces in my life and some of the negative pieces that have happened inside of narcissistic abuse. So, if you're new here, welcome to the channel. Let's dive in. Today, we're talking about lying. Lying is a massive piece that is ingrained in narcissistic personality disorder of how they're showing up, of what's going on. And it's a big piece that was ingrained inside of my life forever. Now, it didn't start off just being like, hey, I came out of my mom's womb and I was like, let's be a liar today, right? It didn't start off like that. It got to a place where I started to realize that certain things would get me in trouble, right? And certain things wouldn't get me in trouble. And certain lies would get me out of trouble. Or at least that's how I perceived it. So growing up, it was this piece of how do I get what I want and how do I avoid the things that I don't want? And it became this piece of like, how do I actually do what I want to do? So I grew up in a very Christian home. My dad was an evangelist, then he was a pastor, then he was an evangelist, then he was a missionary. So I grew up very much ingrained in Christianity, in the church, in religious culture, all different aspects. And the thing that I have against some of that is the aspect that a lot of Christianity is about conformity versus it being about connection. Conformity meaning, hey, let's look and act and be a certain way because regardless if you're having a bad day, you still have to put on a good face to be able to show up, to be happy in front of people so that they get the good news and continue to be as wonderful and happy as you when you're still frustrated and hurting inside. Okay? Some of you might be offended by that, but I'm going to keep moving on. When we're dealing with this piece of lying, though, that got to be a piece that I started to see, hey, I had to show up a certain way even if I didn't feel like it. There was an incongruency there. Now, there's a difference between like, hey, I'm having a bad day and I still show up for work, right? But then there's also a piece of like showing up with a false mask, a false pretense of like, hey, I'm making it seem better than what it actually is instead of actually being honest with what's going on inside. So that was part of the culture and part of the piece that I came from and understood. So then lying got to be a place where I started to realize, hey, if I tell the truth and I get in trouble for it, and if I lie and then I don't get in trouble for it, maybe I could just lie and then I avoid the shame, the guilt, the trouble, the spankings, all that kind of stuff, and I don't have to worry about it. So that was kind of like an early childhood like thought, right? And then I get into high school. And when I went to high school, I was homeschooled for a lot of my life simply because we traveled, we moved around a ton. Then I went into a high school. And so a high school is where life got a little more convoluted because I went to a Christian high school, which is in my mind one of the worst things I could have ever done. But I went to a Christian high school thinking it was going to be great. The problem was I got into a Christian high school and I'm like, wait a second, these people say they're Christians, but they look like everybody else. So I guess it's okay if I do the same things as what they do. That's when a lot of my journey, well, there's some before that, but that's where a lot of the journey ramped up really quick inside of my dating life and inside of other girls. And I remember I had an experience where I had this girl that liked me. She said she liked me, all this kind of stuff. And I came back home and I told my parents. And when I told my parents, it was kind of this like immediate like reaction of like, beware of, females, finances, fame. Like that's just something you don't need to worry about, et cetera, et cetera. But it was a piece where I was just like shut down. And shut down in a place of like the emotional side. It wasn't a place where it was like a safe space. It wasn't abusive. It wasn't violent, but it was a piece of like, hey, I want to be able to talk about this. I don't understand this. This is a new thing. I'm excited about this. And parents being like, yeah, don't pay attention to that. And so I realized really quickly that that wasn't a piece that was an open topic. It wasn't a subject that we could really open up and talk about. So I went back and still engaged with this girl and still had a great time, et cetera, and just kept it a secret. Right. So the parents didn't know that we were together. Parents didn't know all these things. And so there became all of these different things that were happening that would be different lies about being with other girls. Okay. So high school, college, all this stuff, there's different things like that. College is more like dating. There's different aspects. Now, at a young age, well, not super young, but like a young age, probably around like 13 or so, was probably one of the first times I got introduced to porn. We actually got a shed that was delivered, and it was like someone else's shed that they had in their backyard forever, and they got delivered. And I was going through the shed and like cleaning it out, and there was like a porn magazine up top. And so I pulled that down and started looking through it, and I was like, never seen some of this stuff before, right? Like this is before we had access to all this like internet, right? And so I'm looking through this, I'm like, okay, like I don't know what this is. This is bad. Threw it away, and then was like, nope, I kind of like that. Pull it back out, and then threw it away. Like so, it got to be this thing, right? And this is a piece that I kept hidden for a long period of time, and then I never confessed it until after I'd thrown it away, and actually, like I think the trash got taken, and I was like, well, I guess that's it. So there's this other piece of like lies, right? And then I started having like different lies in like smaller areas with smaller things. But then I started to realize that there was this trend. And the trend for me was oftentimes when I would lie, there would be these times where people would catch something and it might be like a silly lie. It might be something like just ridiculous. And I would find myself having this like bashful, smiling like face where I was just like, I can't really avoid the fact that I just lied. And what was happening inside of there is there was like this like guilty piece inside of me getting activated that I would get caught in a lie and people would be like, I can tell you're lying because you can't stop smiling about it. I'd be like, yeah, I'm lying. And then I get in trouble and be like, dang it. So we would go back and forth, but then finally started to learn, okay, there's lies that I care about and there's lies that I don't care about. And the lies that I didn't care about would be the ones that I would start having this bashful face on purpose. That way I would get caught in a lie. And what happened over a period of time is I started to train all the people around me that if I lied, I would get caught. And in doing that, it created this false sense of safety and security for everybody else that they thought that they could tell I was lying at any time. And I used that to my advantage. So then I'd have 10 lies I get caught in, and then I'd have the one that I wouldn't because I just say it with a straight face and I move right on. And so people wouldn't think anything of it and I'd get away with it. So it began to be this like manipulative game of learning, how do I actually use the system around me? How do I actually condition and train different people so that I can appear a certain way, so I can say certain things, so I can do certain things and still get what I want? Now, lying was a piece that didn't stop, right? It just continued. So high school, college, into marriage. Thought marriage was going to be the catch-all be-all. I thought it was going to like finish it up. I thought it was going to fix it. I didn't realize that marriage was just going to be exposing more, right? All it did was just expose more lies, more things underneath the surface. Because because coming into marriage, there wasn't a change of heart. It was still the same exact person, same exact aspect of me, but I was coming into it being like, well, I'll just do the same thing that I normally do, which means getting to a place where I would continue the lies. Now, you might think like, hey, was it big lies? Was it little lies? It was like a bunch of just small, tiny stuff. Small, tiny stuff that kept leading to bigger stuff. So it might be like, why were you coming home late? Like, where were you at? What was going on? Like, who is that? All this kind of stuff, just like small, tiny nuances. But the thing is, all of those repetitious lies started adding up. And adding up to the place where when I got to bigger lies, it felt easier. It felt better. It felt like, well, this is just what I do. And it got to a place where it didn't even feel like it was a conscious effort. It wasn't conscious anymore. It was almost like just roll off the tip of my tongue, like a knee-jerk reaction. Like, did you do this? No. Did you do this? No. Blah, blah, blah. Like, it was just a lie, 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 lie. And it was so easy at that point. Why was it so easy? Because I'd had years of training of how to lie. I've had years of training of working on this to make sure that I could lie at a drop of a hat and make something up really quick and not get caught about it and lie to be able to backfill whatever story I need to lie about. So there's a lot of nuances to it. So this opened up the door then to be able to bring other people into my life. So interacting with other women and having other women into our house as initially like friends and then eventually as emotional affairs and then as physical affairs, that became something that was part of the lies, right? Of how I would lie about, no, I'm not talking to this person. No, we didn't really have a discussion. It wasn't that big of a deal. We didn't spend time talking together. We didn't make out. And then all of a sudden like go down, like there was just a lot of different lies inside of all of this. And the lying piece, I want you to understand this. The lying piece for me, it wasn't about the person I was lying to. And it wasn't even about what I was lying about. It was just about me. Like, that's it. So many people get narcissistic stuff like confused and get all over the place. It's just about the narcissist. It's just about me in that moment. It's like, hey, I'm going to get caught with something that I don't want to deal with. I don't want to deal with the shame. I don't want to deal with the guilt. I don't want to be accountable in this moment. So in this moment, what is the best way to get away from this so I don't feel shame, so I don't feel guilt, so I don't have accountability? Easy. Lie. Because if I lie, then I don't have to feel that. Now, sometimes people are like, but why don't you just tell the truth and then you don't have to feel it? Well, yes, it makes sense logically, but for a narcissist, a lot of times that feels like death. And it feels like, okay, if I tell the truth and I feel the shame and the guilt, then it's going to be the end of the world. I know it's not. And I've worked through a lot of shame and guilt since then, so I don't have that trigger and have that peace. But then the moment, that's what it felt like. I got to avoid it at all costs because it's too uncomfortable. It's too bad. I don't want to deal with it. So I just lie. And this continued to be a piece over and over and over and over again. And until this shifted and until this changed, with me understanding that I was never going to be a man if I kept lying, that nothing was going to be different. I was going to keep having the same results in my life if I kept lying. That's where the light bulb moment started to happen. And then the road to change started opening up. But it had to come down to this piece of just an awareness that I was a liar, but not that I was a liar to everybody else, that I was a liar to myself. And that the reason I was a liar to myself is I didn't want to admit who I actually was. I didn't want to admit the dark side of me. I didn't want to admit that I wasn't a very good guy. In fact, I just wanted to stay really positive of like, I'm a great guy. I'm a good dad. I provide. I show up at the end of the day. But at the same time, I'm just a liar. Which means that I had no integrity, had no courage, had no connection, had no respect for the people in my life that I claimed to love. But as a result, I was hurting and I was destroying each step of the time. When you listen to this, does this resonate with you of your situation, of your relationship? Maybe you're a man listening to me today and you're like, hey, I identify with you because I am a liar. Well, then I want to talk to you. Go to rawmotivations.com. I've got a section for you to be able to fill out an application for us to talk. Maybe you're listening to this today and you're like, hey, I identify this as the woman because I see all of these lies that he continued to do to me and I'm left still confused. Was I worth it? Was it me? Why did he lie to me? Why couldn't he be honest to me? What was different about the other woman besides me? Like, there's just confusion. And if you're in that place, I want to help provide clarity and confidence for you. Because if I can help support you in that, you can actually find the certainty in who you are and actually rise up in your power again versus right now, it might be a hard function and you might be just in survival mode, trying to get through each day one step at a time. If you would, then go to rawmotivations.com as well. And I've got a section for you to be able to see what I actually do. Because there's hundreds of women that we help liberate through systems and modalities of teaching how to break out of a trauma bond, how to deal with helping healthy boundaries, how to actually move forward and find your own identity. And if I can help you with that, go to rawmotivations.com today. Thanks so much for listening today. This is the finish of Toxic Tuesdays, and we'll see you back next week. All right, welcome back today. If you weren't around yesterday, what we were dumping into was called Toxic Tuesday. And Toxic Tuesday was actually walking down some of the journey of the affairs and of the cheating and some of the things that had happened in my life. And I wanted to be very clear that I didn't get a chance to be able to finish some of that video yesterday because of how long it was going. So I wanted to be able to bring it to you in part 2 that we're going to talk about today inside the area of affairs and cheating. So if you haven't listened to the first part, then this might not make sense jumping right in, but we're going to jump right in with where we were yesterday to be able to talk through this piece of Toxic Tuesdays, which was yesterday, and also this piece of cheating. So cheating was a piece that was the norm for me. It was the part that I kept going back to, thinking, well, like, I'll just break the cycle and I won't do this anymore. But the problem was I just kept going back, kept doing it over and over and over again. Then there was this story in my mind that was always painting me as the victim that I wanted to believe that I was the person that was being hurt. I was the person that was always left. I was the person that was not understood. All of these stories that I would create in my mind to make myself feel better about what I was doing. And so the first 2 affairs happened. Then we get to the third affair. The third affair was one of these pieces that just seemed to just happen, right? Like it just happened. And so in this aspect, got to a place where I was actually traveling and I was going different places, helping open up different stores. And I went to one of these stores and there was this moment of interaction with this one girl and another guy where we went out to eat and where the conversation just went really like open sexually. Of like just talking through a bunch of different things. And there was just this chemistry there of like, oh, like I can talk about these kind of things and we can get really like nasty with it and it feels good, right? It feels like cool. It feels exciting because this is not the norm. This is not how I normally talk. This is not how I normally act. And all of this kept like lining up. So there's a bunch of pieces that just had doors open. Then started texting, started interacting, and ended up being like a couple nights with this person while I was at this event. And so this all happened when I get home, my wife ends up telling me that we're pregnant. And so there's a ton of guilt and shame and things that came out right then and there. A ton of it. Like it was weird. I kind of like disconnected. When I got home and she told me that, it was just kind of like I completely like disconnected. Like I didn't really give her much of a response. I think she thought it was weird because I didn't really give much of a response about the kids, about the fact that she was pregnant. And so it was just kind of like weird. that child was the one that ended up going on that we lost, the miscarriage. Now, inside of that whole losing and miscarriage, my mind wanted to spin up its own stories about me, telling myself that it was my fault that that happened because I cheated. It was my fault that that happened because of what I did. It was my fault because of the lies, because of all of these different things. And it just added more layers and layers of shame that I was putting on myself. And so when we moved and we lost the baby, and then we moved and we came to another location, then I'm like, okay, there's not anymore. I've been able to move past that. Like, we're good. And then it started up again. Then it started up again where I started interacting with other women, and I started interacting with other people at work, and there just became this connection. All of this always started off with a connection point with another person. Developing this like connection with, hey, this is how we act, how we interact, we like the same things, we do the same things, whatever it might be. There's this like connection and then like flirtatious piece. Then it got to a place where then it just keep going and going and going, and then it would get closer and closer and closer, and then all of a sudden it'd be something that went from, hey, just being interactions, being acquaintances, being friends, to being lovers. And so this happened a fourth time. And in going through this piece, it was different. It was different in what I was engaging with. It was more subtle. It was longer going. It was longer going throughout like the workplace. It was longer going throughout like our friend group. Like, it was just all over the place. It was just a piece that continued to go long term. And then people started noticing. Like, people in the workplace started noticing, like, hey, he's spending time with this person. Hey, why are they talking in the parking lot? Hey, this, hey, that. And everybody would talk. And inside of that, there would be people that would actually come to my defense. Well, no, he's like working with her on this, or he's dealing with this, or he's trying to encourage her in this, whatever it might be. There's people that come to my defense. Even at the place where my wife would accuse me at home of, I think you're cheating with her, or I think you're having an inappropriate relationship with her. And then at work, she would defend me. Be like, no, he's just, he had to talk to her about something. And so it became this thing. And this is what happens inside of even narcissistic abuse. It becomes this thing that you start to protect the other person. Even if you have doubts, fears, even if you have proof that something's happening, you start to protect the other person. And oftentimes it's to protect the other person so it also protects you from the embarrassment of like, why are you still with a person that keeps cheating on you? And so that's part of what she was doing. Part of it is the trauma bond, part of it is embarrassment. Like, she had to protect herself. And that's how she would do it, of defending me. No, that's not what. And then she would talk to me later, being like, this person said something. Like, can you stop? Like, why do you keep interacting with this person? Why do you keep talking to this person? Like, stop. It's not helping. Throughout this time, we had our second kid, our firstborn now. And so inside of this, she's born, and there's still these interactions with this other girl being in our lives. And Kayla not knowing anything about it, not to the degree of like, yes, she is cheating. She had this gut feeling the entire time. Like, she knew internally that the entire time, but the actual knowingness of the proof, that wasn't there. The proof of me confessing, that wasn't there. She would catch different things, then it would delete, it would disappear. Like, there would be multiple pieces that she knew, but she didn't have the proof. So then she was just kind of like, well, I'll stay a little bit longer. And then this relationship started to go downhill. In the aspect that she wanted more. And she wanted me to leave my wife and my daughter. And at that point, there's this weird conundrum, because in my mind, I'm like, I want to go and be with you, because that's what this whole affair started as, because I wasn't happy at home. But in the other sense, I didn't want to break up my family, because my family had this image, right? It looked good to other people. I didn't want to appear bad to my parents, and from the Christian frame of like, oh, you're that person getting a divorce. I didn't want to hurt my daughter that way. All of these thoughts that don't even make sense, because like, if I didn't want that, then why am I doing the thing that's actually hurting that? But in the moment, I'm not thinking about that aspect. I'm only thinking about me. Well, that's going to put me in a weird situation. That's going to put me uncomfortable. And looking back, I literally think there was a piece of it that was a limiter placed on me by God. Of just this kind of piece of like, yeah, let's not. Like, a piece that just didn't let me go to another level, because he knew if I went to another level, that everything else in my life would completely implode. It did, but not in this exact way. And I remember getting to a place where this other gal in my life was so passionate about me leaving. And there was one moment that we were sitting across the table at work, and then she was like whispering and talking and like getting really like adamant of like, leave your wife. Do you know you don't love her? You know you love me. There's all different types of pieces that started going into this that just started being like putting me off. And part of it was like the aggression. Part of it was like the intensity. Part of it is like, hey, she was saying one thing, like we were both doing the same thing. Like she was dating around and then being with me. I was with my wife and then being with her. She had no obligation to, be with me. But in the same aspect, we were like, oh, we love each other, but we're still with other people. So it's a really messed up situation. Then in learning and getting through some of this and getting to a place where understanding it and understanding even people around the situation, looking in on that, a lot of people started to see and realize that that person wasn't just a person that was, hey, normal person that was cheating, but also had a lot of borderline tendencies of how she would act, how she would interact, how she would actually manipulate, how she would, all these different things. And part of it became clear to me because I started to see how she was acting and I started to realize that that's how I acted. It wasn't this piece of an awareness of like, oh, I'm a narcissist now. It was just this piece of like, wait a second, like I do that. Like she just hurt me in that way, but I do the same thing because I'm lying this way. So it's just kind of like an awareness piece. But that relationship started to come to a head and started to implode. Started to implode because she wanted more and I wasn't willing to give her more. And then got into the fifth relationship and it kind of crisscrossed. There's tons of blowups. There's tons of things that were happening during this time. And then the fifth relationship went for a period of time, but it went like backwards. It went from a period of like we were interacting together and then we were like physical. And then we got to a place where it's more like, okay, we shouldn't be physical. It's not right. It's not what we want to do. It's not honoring to God, right? So we went from physical to being kind of like emotional affair. And then from emotional affair, we went to being friends. And then from friends, went to a place of being like, hey, we just need to go no contact. Super difficult and super hard. And this was like the longest journey out of all of this. If both of these hadn't happened, I wouldn't be here today. One, because the one started to build a different piece of awareness and started to have a different level of hurt on me. Hurt that I needed to feel in order to actually see the hurt that I was giving to other people. And the other one to actually be able to wake me up to the reality of what was actually going on and actually have it go backwards. Super weird. It's super odd. I don't really talk about it much because it doesn't really make sense. People are like, how does it go backwards as far as like the physical, the emotional, like friendship, acquaintance, and then like no contact. And that's just how God planned it. During this time, my mindset was, well, I've messed everything up, but maybe we can all still be friends. And I was still orchestrating and keeping it all together for a good period of time. Like the fourth affair was in our lives for about 10 months after everything was confessed. Everything was confessed, everything new. And Kayla was so trauma bonded that she was still hosting and having that person in the friend group inside of her house. Like she looks back on it, like she told me, she's looked back on it. She's like, how crazy was I to even allow this to happen? To even like let her back into the house after I knew. Because the other girl didn't even apologize. Like she didn't care. There's a moment of like her just being like pissed off that she like told Kayla, I knew what I was doing and I would do it again. But everything was so trauma bonded that it was difficult for Kayla to be able to see this. And it was difficult for me to let go of different pieces. So it took 10 months before I actually even blocked that person, before she was out of my life. And then the last one that was there, the fifth relationship, that continued to go. And it continued to go until we got to a place where it was just like friends. There was still interaction. There was no sexualness. There was no emotional piece, but it was still interaction. There's still too much because of everything that had happened. There was still too many ties there, but it was that type of interaction. And through all of this, Kayla got to the place where she's like, okay, I'm done. Like she didn't want to leave because she was afraid if I leave, he's going to cheat on me. Even though in her mind, she was like, well, he's been cheating on me this entire time, so why does it even matter? But there was the finality of it. So when she left, it was the finality of like, she's moving, she's going to take a job in another state, she's going to be gone, and she's done. And if she had that in her mind, she's like, I'm done. Then in doing that, what it did is it released me from doing any work for her. Because she wasn't around anymore. She was done. She was out. We were pretty much almost completely no contact. We had a couple interactions and we traded our daughter one weekend in like a period of like 4 months or so. But she was done. And inside of that, I was left alone to be able to figure out, okay, am I going to continue having this connection with this other person, or am I eventually going to get to a place where I'm done? And that took a long period of time to be able to work through to actually release and let go. Because I didn't want to. I had a fantasy. I had this idea in my head that this is who I wanted to be with. This is what life should be like. This is what life should feel like. Because I was just going off of feelings, what I wanted in the moment. And so finally getting to the place where we go from the physical, the emotional, the friendship, the acquaintance, and go no contact. And go to a place where like we've never talked since. That piece of breaking that down from a positive light in my toxic mind, because that person was like the best person ever. That was the thought process, the idea. Breaking it down to be able to say, okay, I'm going to release and let go and actually make a conscious choice to invest in my wife. One of those hardest decisions and processes I had to go through. And I had to get to the place of thinking and saying and realizing that I haven't invested anything into my relationship. I hadn't invested anything into my wife. And if I wasn't willing to actually invest in that, then nothing was going to change. Nothing was actually going to happen. And so I had to do that. That was the next step. So I started investing into my wife, and whenever she came back to be able to get clothes, it's really all she came back for. She didn't come back to stay. She came back to get clothes, stayed for a week, and was like, I'll give it another week. And then she gave it another week, and then a month, and then another month. And she really kind of just played this game in her mind of like, okay, here's my next out. To wait and see if the things that she was seeing inside of me, the changes, how I was showing up, how I was communicating, were actually different or not. All right. That's where we are now. There's a whole lot of life since then, but that at least catches you up to speed when we're talking about Toxic Tuesdays, even though it's Wednesday, and we're talking about cheating. Just part of my story. You might be like, why are you telling us all of this? Like, is this just like you flaunting, hey, this is what you've done? No. This is me saying, hey, here is all of my shit laid out in front of you. To say, one, I understand where you are, what's going on. I understand the things that you've been put through because I've done that. And also have you understand that this is what I actually provide inside of Raw Motivations is we help women find closure inside the toxic relationships so that they don't repeat this cycle or stay in it so long like my wife did. But being able to actually empower you to reclaim and rediscover your voice, who you actually are, to see the facts for what they are before you actually have to look for such a long period of time as a sleuth trying to figure out what is the actual evidence. You already know the evidence. You already know the evidence internally. You already know the evidence if you look at the relationship and how he's showing up on a day-to-day basis. But the question is, are you willing to do something about it? If you're willing to do something about it for you and for your growth and for your development, then reach out. Go to rawmotivations.com today. We'd love to help you move forward inside the healing process today. You have a blessed, wonderful day, and we'll see y'all next time. All right, welcome back to Toxic Tuesdays. On Tuesdays, we're going to be talking about some of the toxicity that narcissists are struggling with or that is happening. And some of that is also just showcasing and talking through stuff that happened in my life and what was actually going on inside of the abuse, inside of the affairs that I was participating in causing inside of my relationships. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness of narcissistic abuse, to be able to help you understand how to heal from a toxic person like who I used to be, and also how to grow and change and develop and transform into who you're actually called to be versus being stuck, because I believe you're on this planet to be more than just used and abused. So inside of this, let's dive in. We're going to be talking about cheating today. And inside the topic of cheating, I'm going to be talking through some of my journey and some of my story. Sometimes people hear different aspects of me being almost casual about the cheating. And it's not casual in the fact of I'm being like, oh, look what I did. It's more of like, hey, this has happened and this has been a part of my life. I don't run away from the truth and the reality of what I've done or how I've shown up. I've shown up as a coward. I've shown up as a cheater. I've shown up as a liar. I've shown up as an abuser. And being on this channel to help provide closure to a lot of people has been really rewarding for people to see and understand, and also to be able to find freedom inside of this. So inside of all of what we're talking about today, part of what I want to be able to talk through is cheating and what does it actually look like. The affairs and things that I had didn't start off being like, let me go find prostitutes. Let me go be with this person. Let me go just have sex with this person. It was all looking for this connection and looking for this love. And I would paint this love in this beautiful aspect and picture of what I wanted, this ideal love, this version of love that I wanted to imagine and think and say, this is the one, this is the right person, all of these different things. And this is how I would lie to myself to cheat. I'd have to lie to myself to get to a place of saying, well, I'm not happy with my wife. She's not good enough. She's not giving me attention. She's not valuing me. She doesn't get me. I had to lie to myself in order to justify what I was doing. And that's what any narcissist and any toxic person is doing when they're cheating, is they have to be able to tell themselves a story that they believe in order to go cheat. Well, throughout high school and throughout college, there was this cycle of always being with a woman, being with someone. And then as that relationship would start to fall off, I could sense it even before it happened. I could sense before she would break up with me. I could sense before she was pulling away, and I would start looking for another person. I'm going to start engaging. There's almost like I had people lined up of like, if this person doesn't work, let's go ahead and communicate to this person. Let's go ahead and talk to this person. It was just a cycle. So as one was ending, one was starting all at the same time. There was never a spot where I was alone and I didn't have someone. Now, it wasn't always necessarily a relationship, but sometimes it was a girl that I could text or a girl that I could be with or whatever it might be. There was these different pieces that I always had someone in my life in that type of role. Now, moving into marriage, there was a part of me that thought this will fix it. Like, I don't have to worry about it anymore. Then I'll be done with it. Like, there won't be any more cycles. There won't be any more pieces where I'll be looking for another woman because this will be the one, right? And it got to a place where I started to go through the process of engagement and marriage, and it kind of became just like a check the box thing. It became a check the box thing in the aspect of like, well, I guess this is what I'm supposed to do, right? The high of the relationship has started to fade off. And when it started to fade off, that's normally when I go to someone else. But at that point, I was like, well, I'm kind of stuck, right? Because I'd already committed. I'd already shown up. I'd already been someone who's pursued this. It got to a place where then it was like, okay, I guess I'm going through with this. Not easy for anyone to hear. Not easy for anyone to realize that at that point, I was just going through motions. But that's what my life had been. It had just been motion after motion. It's been one step after one step, going after one person, going after another person. And so got to the place of getting engaged, getting married, thinking, this is it. Figured it out. And then stepped into the first year of marriage, and it was absolute hell. Like, Kayla will vouch for this. Like, it was just absolute hell. Like, both of us getting into the relationship and realizing, hey, this is way more intense and way harder than we ever thought it was ever going to be. Now, the main piece was because of me. Because I was an idiot, because I was a jerk, because I was rude and abusive to her. And so I just expected, right? I expected her to serve me. I expected her to do X, Y, and Z. I expected her to cook a certain way, to clean a certain way, to fold the clothes a certain way, like everything. It was awful. And all of that stuff like created this great big divide between us, and also created this piece in my mind of like, oh, she's not good enough. Like, she's not like this. I made the wrong choice. Like, if this is what marriage is, like, this sucks. Like, I was using all of these negative pieces to be able to run my mindset so that when someone else entered in the picture, and I'm like, oh, I can connect with this person. So about a year into our relationship, I started up another affair. And inside of this affair, I'm like, hey, I'm connected to this person. This person was involved in work, was involved in our lives. And I'm like, oh, like there's just a connection. Like we connect on these movies. We connect in this music. We connect in this way. Then all of a sudden that connection just got closer and closer and closer and closer until finally it became physical. And in that place of being physical, it ended up going for about a year. Like, getting worse and worse inside of just the things that were going on and the manipulation that was happening around it. Different aspects that my wife wasn't aware of because she was sick, or because different things were going on, because of the stress, anxiety that I was putting under, had her be tired. She didn't want to show up, so then I would go out with this other person. Like, there's many different things that I was doing to be able to put her, Michaela, in like a really, really bad mental situation. Then I would get frustrated at her being like, why don't you make a decision? And then I would leave and go hang out with friends and be with this girl. So this was like part of my world. I was all focused on what I wanted. And so that was that engagement. And so being with that person happened for a year or so. And then that one slowly started to disappear. And the reason why it started to disappear is because she started to get so attached. She was like, well, when is this going to go anywhere? And I'm like, well, it's not going to go anywhere because I don't want to leave, because I didn't want to look bad. And at that point, I didn't want to look bad to church, to religious organizations, to my parents, to other friends and family. Like, I didn't want to be that guy, right, that cheated and got a divorce. So that was not who I wanted to be. Also, I knew that wasn't going to look good for her family. Like, it wasn't a good situation because we kept it hidden for so long, and it wasn't fair. Like, how it all started, everything. It was just bad situation. So I was like, well, this doesn't make sense. I'm not going to do this. And so I didn't do it, but another friend found out. And then that spread and that spread. And then all of our groups found out. Then I got to a place where we confessed it. Like, I went with the affair partner. We actually confessed it to our pastor. And he really didn't even know what to do. So the church started going through this whole process of like, well, he's not repentant because he's still working at the same job with her. We changed our schedules. We weren't interacting at work. Like, we changed a bunch of different things around to try to be able to say, okay, like, we both need a job, but we need to go ahead and make sure this is separate so that there's not interactions. We stopped everything like stopped, and there wasn't any aspects there of like connection or interaction or anything like that. So it was pretty much like going no contact bout, pretty much. We might see each other in passing, but there wasn't any other connection besides that. And inside of that, then the church was like, well, he's still not repentant because he hasn't left. We were in a transition mode too inside of work where we were actually getting ready to leave that job and we were getting ready to move to a different location. And inside that, we're just like, we got a time frame and this is going to happen. We're going to be out of here. But the church was like, well, you're not leaving, so therefore you're not repentant. So let's go ahead and start moving through church discipline. And so there's a weird section in my life. And the weird section here was like, I was getting to a place where I was frustrated because I didn't understand what was going on. I was frustrated with my marriage. I was frustrated with the affair. I was frustrated with the church. Like, I was just frustrated, period. Because I was like, I can't figure this stuff out. I don't understand why I do this. I don't understand what the problem is. I don't understand like why I'm struggling so much inside of this. So I got to a place where it was like a come to Jesus moment, right? It was like, okay, give it all up. I'm done. And then we went to counseling. And when we went to counseling, we went to a biblical nouthetic counselor. And for anyone that's dealing with the narcissist, I highly don't recommend this because they're extremely manipulative. They're extremely able to be manipulated, and the majority of them think that you're actually trying to work on it when the narcissist in your life is not working on it. I do not recommend Christian counseling for narcissists, especially like full blown. You're like, it just doesn't work. Okay, I've seen too many people get gaslit into staying in the relationships because of the Christian frame, which is ridiculous because it's abusive inside of being in a narcissistic relationship. So we went, and part of what was going on inside of this whole situation was he was slowly inserting the almost like subconscious thought process that Kayla didn't do good enough to make sure that I didn't cheat. And he used a phrase which is not all bad, but inside of a context like this is pretty bad. It was basically this idea of like, you didn't make it hard for him to sin. But how it actually came across and what he actually was like indicating was like, well, you didn't make the house loving enough so that he wouldn't go look out for another woman. Like, complete bullshit. But it was like ridiculous because we were getting this from a Christian counselor that was like, there was very much like a claim from other people and all this stuff. And so like, we're getting this and I'm realizing like, oh, if I phrase stuff a certain way, he's going to put it back on her. And she's coming away from the whole situation being like, it's all my fault. Like, he cheated on me because I wasn't good enough, because I didn't do this right, because I didn't do this right. And so she left inside of all of that with a ton of guilt and shame of, okay, it's all your fault that he cheated on you, and you have to keep doing all these things to get better so that he doesn't cheat on you again. It was absolutely ridiculous. Looking back, I know that. Then I didn't. I was just like, oh, okay, I guess it was your fault, right? Because I didn't want to take accountability. I wanted to blame it on someone else. So inside of that, we started moving into different places. Like we were moving around inside of work, and I got into somewhat of a close knit, but then it ended up being long distance because we were moving. Another relationship, another affair. Okay, same thing. It started on a very much like friendship level, then like intimate level, then like a sexual level. And so that piece started to transform, and then that got to a place where this girl got to a place where when we moved one time, she was like, okay, I'm done. Like, I can't keep doing this. Like, she actually could see it. She could see it from the other person, because she was in that friend group. She could see it from the other person, and she could see it from her own life. This wasn't going anywhere, and it was only hurting her. And so she's one of the only people out of everybody that actually went no contact completely. No contact completely on her own and just cut it. And so I got a text message from her, and it was just kind of like, hey, appreciate everything you've done. Appreciate both of you in my life. I can't be a part of your life anymore, et cetera, et cetera. Don't ever contact me again. Done. And that was an interesting one because for me, I actually respected that, which is really weird. Because everybody else, I would like grovel and like try to go back to it, try to figure out, like play the victim, right? But for that, I was just like, as soon as I saw it, knowing her and knowing what was going on, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, this is done. This put me closest to depression that I've ever been. Like walking around and like screaming at God, like being really, really pissed off. being really, really down. And all of this is going on while I'm still in a relationship with my wife. We're still together. We're in a different state than what we originally were. They're working at a different company. And like all of this is going on. And I'm just pissed. And I'm pissed because I'm not getting what I wanted. Like I'm not living how I actually wanted to live. I'm not being with this person and enjoying the high of it. That's all cheating is. It's the high of different relationships. It's the high of getting away with it. It's the high of it. And I was pissed off because I was like, I'm not getting what I want. This continued to lead down to the same aspect of me trying to look for what I wanted. What I wanted inside of different addictive things, pornography, inside of like trying to find other women, like inside of everything. Like this continued to have a pattern in my life for such a long period of time. We're going to wrap up this video because it's longer than what I thought it was going to be. And we're going to come back next week in Toxic Tuesdays to actually talk about the next stage inside of some of my journey. When we're talking about the cheating, what's actually going on in like next stage. I covered the first 2 out of 5 affairs. So I want to be able to talk through this just to be able to share what was happening mindset-wise, thought process internally. If you're listening to this and you're wondering, like, why is he even doing this? Because part of what I'm doing is to try to provide closure to some of you that are confused about your relationship, what's actually going on. Part of it is just sharing my story. So it's my own liberation from my own story and thought process. And part of it is just being able to declare, this is who I am and this is what I've done, which is why I'm here talking through this to help liberate other people that are trapped in toxic relationships. If you're a woman that's stuck in a toxic relationship and you're not sure how to be free from it, then I want you to understand there is freedom and it is possible. And I work with women every single day to actually liberate them from people just like who I used to be. Would love to share more about that, but you can go to rawmotivations.com just to hear a little bit about what I do. And you'll also be able to hear a little bit from my wife as well. It's not a new concept that narcissists love to manipulate. And in manipulation, it's trying to be able to figure out, how do I manufacture an emotion? How do I manufacture a feeling? How do I manufacture a response from the other party? And how do I make sure that this person throughout the midst of it stays completely confused and stays completely stuck? You're going to get into a relationship with a toxic guy where his main goal is to keep you stuck almost in a loop, where you keep cycling back to him over and over, where your mindset keeps looping over and over. I should get out. I should stay. I should leave. I should go. Wait, what should I do? Maybe he loves me. Maybe he cares. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. What do I do? And you stay stuck. The whole reality of you arguing and having these moments with a narcissist is not because you're right and he's wrong, and not because he's right and you're wrong, and not because that part even matters at this point. What matters is he has to keep you in a state of confusion. If he keeps you in a state of confusion, nothing else changes. If he keeps you in a state of confusion, you're not able to make a move. If he keeps you in a state of confusion, you die, and the person that you are currently disintegrates into nothing. Let's talk about this a little bit more. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness of narcissistic abuse. I'm the founder of Raw Motivations, and I work to help liberate women trapped in toxic relationships, getting away from guys who used to show up just like me, and being able to help them see how the trauma bond and the triggers have to be broken in order to find freedom from the addictive cycle that they're currently in. Well, when we talk about the addictive cycle and the trauma bond, there's multiple pieces that keep you stuck in the trauma bond. One of the biggest ones is just a layer of confusion. Consider if you're driving and your GPS dies, your phone dies, you have no way of knowing actually where you are, you take a wrong turn, and you are confused because you're lost. And in that moment of being lost and in that moment of confusion, you take a pause to try to figure out which way you need to go. And that pause is maybe a couple seconds, maybe a couple minutes. It's not an indefinite pause. But when you're in a toxic relationship with a narcissist, you're in an indefinite pause because everything is status. Everything is like stuck. There's not this progression or this growth inside of you or inside of anyone else. It's literally stuck because you're confused. Sometimes you're confused because he won't commit. He says he's going to commit, but he doesn't commit. Sometimes you're confused because he says one thing, but then his actions do the other. Either way, you stay in a place of limbo. And this limbo gets anxiety driven, gets stressful, gets confusing, and it makes you feel ultimately lost. Now, how does the narcissist keep you in this? One of the ways the narcissist will do this is circular conversations and even circular reasoning. The idea of him being able to have something come up and then keep coming back to it over and over and over again. You've already seen this in your relationship by the one thing that you did that was wrong. Maybe years in the past you cheated, right? And he's never let you forget that. That's been something that keeps bringing up. And actually, it's something that right now he uses as justification to continue to cheat on you right now. Because, well, you did this to him. You hurt him so bad. There's always going to be this blame shifting and this gaslighting on you to try to convince you of something that, yes, you might have done something that to hurt him, or you might have done something bad, but that one thing pales in comparison to the thousands that he's doing based on that one justification. You'll find circular conversations to be exhausting, to be at a place where you feel mentally drained, you feel crazy, and you almost step back and you wonder, what are we even talking about anymore? Have you ever found yourself in the middle of a conversation, in the middle of an argument with a narcissist, and you're scratching your head thinking, how did we get here? Like, what happened? Like, why are we on this topic? Why are we discussing this again? Well, that's because in narcissistic lingo and language, their words are going to try to circular and go around you and around you and around you to confuse you. It's almost like a wolf circling a sheep. And he's like, let me keep going around and around till the sheep gets dizzy and then I can pounce. Because then you're not going to have a clue of what we're actually talking about and what you're actually dealing with. When you're dealing with a narcissist, oftentimes the circular reasoning will start with one subject, and then we'll go to another subject, and another subject, and another subject, and ultimately we'll come back to the same subject. That's the circular part of it. It's almost like you can never get out of an argument, and you can never get a resolution to an argument, to a discussion. You try to hold him accountable for something, and it ends up being your fault. And then it ends up coming back to him being accountable, and that ends up being your fault. And it never really ends. It's just constantly moving over and over and over. Now, sometimes in the middle of circular reasoning and the circular conversations that happen in a toxic relationship, you'll have the narcissist bring up the straw man tactic and use this as a way to be able to distract you and to deflect all attention off of him. Now, a straw man tactic is is literally like creating a straw man of an argument to be able to break that down and to defeat that. So imagine you have a really strong man. Okay, you have a knight in shining armor and you're like, hey, this is the standard, you're not meeting it. And then he's like, well, yeah, but look at this over here. That's a straw man. And this is the problem. And he defeats that argument. So consider when you have this piece, it can be extremely, extremely stupid. It doesn't have to be anything big. Consider for a moment, you try to hold him accountable. Hey, you cheated on me. Well, yeah, but you also didn't call me the other night when you were out. And so I thought you cheated on me. Like, it doesn't even make sense, right? You're not going to find narcissistic logic making sense. If you're just out to try to figure out how it all makes sense, you're screwed. Why? Because you're going to spend too much time trying to understand the lingo, the knowledge, and the understanding of narcissistic abuse versus you actually getting healed from it. Now, this is hard because some people are like, well, if I just had closure, I could heal. Well, closure doesn't come from the narcissist. Closure actually comes from you. You acknowledging and seeing the facts of the situation. You're like, well, I don't have any facts. He's not here. That is a big fact that he's not in your life, showing that he hasn't made the choice to actually be here. So let's start taking a look at what is actual reality in this moment. So when we're talking about these circular reasoning, sometimes narcissists will create straw man. And the straw man is just him creating a different piece of the argument that he knows he can win. Him creating something small that he can like destroy you on, decimate you on. And then he feels like he's accomplished and won in all areas. This happens a lot of times in the conversations of fighting technical, fighting with small little pieces of logic. Let's say you talk to them and you're like, hey, I'm concerned about X, Y, and Z, that you cheated on me. Like, that's a popular one, right? You cheated on me and this happened because you got home at this time or whatever. They'd be like, what time did I get home? And you're like, you got home at like 6:30. And he's like, no, I got home at 6:40. You're wrong. It's stupid, right? It'll literally be that technical though. If you make a tiny piece off, he will try to distract you. He'll try to defeat the entire argument. If I can prove one tiny thing is wrong out of the 100 things that are right, well, then I've won and the rest of it doesn't even matter. It's throwing the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing. Like if he can throw one piece out, he can throw the whole thing out. That's what his mind is trying to do. So inside of this, he's trying to find one small piece that's an error, one small piece that's wrong, one small piece that is not correct for you. And then he can destroy your entire argument. And then you find yourself getting back to the place of bringing up the same thing, and then you're back in the same spot. So how do you actually deal with this? One, it's incredibly hard to deal with this with a narcissist because he's not going to care, he's not really going to respond, and you're not really going to get anywhere. But when you're trying to get somewhere, what you need to understand is you have to stay grounded in the actual subject. Hey, you cheated on me, and here's the evidence. Well, yeah, but hey, that's great. We can talk about that later, but right now we're going to talk about that you cheated on me, and here's the evidence. Well, yeah, but you did. Okay, I get that, but we're going to talk about that in a moment. Right now, we need to talk about the fact that you cheated on me, and here's the evidence. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm grounding. I'm bringing back to the conversation because he'll want to bring it out, and you'll be like, nope, bring it back. And he's like, nope, bring it back. But he's like, well, what about this? Nope, bring it back. Hey, I appreciate you talking about that, but we're talking about this right now. We can talk about that in a moment, but we're going to talk about this right now. Literally, this is where you start going like 4 and 5-year-old on the K. Because he's not going to want to stick on the same subject. His goal is deflect. His goal is move, like get away from the subject. So you have to be able to stand in a powerful spot that says, nope, we're coming back to this subject. We're coming right back here and we're going to focus on this. And until we get this figured out, we're not moving anywhere else. Oh, you want to move right here? That's great. But we're going to talk about this first. This is extremely hard because he's going to pull out every single tool in his toolbox to try to trigger you, to try to manipulate you, and to try to control you. So as a result, you're going to be fighting your own brain more to be able to even get to the place of saying, nope, we're going to actually focus only on this. Because right now, I'm not going to listen to everything else you're saying. I want to focus on this one thing. Oh, you're not going to listen to me? Right now, I'm only going to listen about this because this is what I brought up, and I need you to listen and understand this. Oh, so you just don't care about me. I do care, which is why we're going to talk about that in a minute, but right now we need to talk about this subject first. Well, why can't we talk about my subject? We can talk about your subject, but right now we're going to talk about this subject because this subject is the first thing that I brought up, and I want to be able to close it out so then we can move on to a subject that you want to talk about. Well, that just seems selfish. Why can't we talk about what I want to talk about? We can. I'm not saying we can't. We can. But we're going to finish talking about this subject first. It has to be extremely grounded where you're bringing him back to the same topic over and over and over again. Now, side note, just understand, he's probably going to get pissed. He's probably going to blow up at you. He's probably going to get all pissed off and upset because he does not like being held accountable. It's like you're holding his feet to the fire, being like, no, you are going to actually own up to this, talk about this, deal with this. And if you don't want to do this, we're going to keep bringing back to this conversation every single time. All right, let me know how this resonated with you. Did it connect? What came up for you? What did you hear? Okay, out of all of this, what did you hear? What came out for you? And I want you to just leave a comment down below to let us know what came out for you. What are the questions you have inside of this piece of the circular conversations? I know I didn't touch on everything about circular conversations. I didn't get into all the logic and all the different pieces of it, but I wanted to just paint a picture of like where you are, what's going on, and what you can do. Because if you don't get grounded for you inside your mindset, your thought process, this means getting rid of the trauma bond. This means working through the triggers. If you don't get grounded for you, he's going to continue to run circles around you, get you confused, you get dizzy, you fall down, he pounces. So inside of this, let us know how this helped. Leave a comment down below. If you want help with this and dealing with narcissistic abuse, breaking free from the addiction, I'll keep cycling back and forth to him, then go to rawmotivations.com today. We'd love to be able to help you move forward in the healing process. Hey, just want to jump in here really quick and say you might have been watching my content for a period of time, but you haven't taken the next step. You haven't taken the next moment, the next idea, the next thought to actually change your life. And I want to provide you with a couple different options. One of the ways is to be able to work with me personally inside the Thriver Intensive. What I do inside of there is help you break the trauma bond, eradicate the triggers, and move forward in the healing process. You got 24/7 access to me. You've got access to other women who are going through it, access to other coaches, but a support system that you need to finally break free once and for all, and to make sure that you don't go back, that you don't interact with them again, and that you finally find peace. If you're interested in knowing a little bit more about this, then click on the link down below, but it'll be rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. You'll be able to hear a little bit from me, you'll be able to hear a little bit from my wife, and be able to hear a little bit more about what I do to help you move forward. If that resonates with you, click on the link below, rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. As a narcissist, I viewed and I thought the world actually revolved around me. Now, I knew logically from a scientific standpoint that it didn't, but in my mind, it did. And I wanted to make sure everybody knew that. I wanted to make sure everybody saw that because they had to see that it was about me so they could make sure that they could serve me in the way that I thought I should be served. Welcome back to Toxic Tuesdays, where we dive into some of the negative aspects of a narcissist, the negative aspects of who I used to be, and some of the pieces and processes moving forward in the healing aspect. This video, a lot of times on Tuesdays, is not always for the survivor, but sometimes it's for the abuser. But it's also just an educational piece as well. So however it works, however it connects, we'd love to be able to help you move forward. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness of narcissistic abuse. I work with women that are trapped in toxic relationships to find freedom, and I work with men that have shown up as abusers, liars, cheaters, to help them actually show up honest. and to be able to walk through the same transformational journey that I did in order to be here now and to show up different here today. So if you need help with any of this, either way, go to rawmotivations.com. Would love to work with you. Love to help you move forward in the healing process. So when we talk through today, one of the pieces that we're going to look at is the aspect of entitlement and how the world revolved around me. Literally did. That was my world. That was my universe. And the hard part is when you look at a narcissist, that the world revolves around them, it's hard for you to relate sometimes. Because when you look at it, you're like, this doesn't even make sense. Like, why is he acting like this? Why is this? Like, I wouldn't do this. And we know that. Okay? And that's one of the pieces we need to highlight and point out really quick. You are different than the narcissist. I know this is common sense, but it needs to be said anyways. You are vastly different than the narcissist. So when you look at life and you think, I would never do that, that's great. And I know that you wouldn't. But he would because he doesn't think the same way as you. A narcissist thinks completely different about people, resources, ideas, image, money, all of these things, because it all has to revolve around him. And one of the biggest mistakes you will make in a toxic relationship is one, thinking that you matter to him, and two, thinking that you matter. And I don't mean you matter as far as you have worth or value, but that you matter in the relationship. So many times people think, well, why doesn't he love me because I did all this for him? Why doesn't he this because of what I did? Why does he do this because of who I am? He doesn't actually care. If he did, he'd probably still be here, but he's not because he didn't actually care about you. And when you're thinking about you in terms of narcissist, you already have it like turned the wrong way. He's not thinking about you. It's all about him. So when you start thinking it's something that you did, he's not even thinking that. It's just about what he wants in the moment. And so inside this conversation then of manipulation, of control, of all the different aspects that are happening, we have to be able to talk through this piece of being entitled, where he thinks that the world revolves around him. Now, for me, sometimes I would even joke about it. I would bring it up in a way that would be a joke, but also would be very serious, seriously joking. So inside of a place of just making a comment that the world revolves around me, making a comment of like, I'm the best thing ever, making a comment that's puffing me up to make myself look good to other people. And in doing this, I would feel better about myself. Look how good I am, right? It's like pride. It's the ego. It's all the different pieces rising up, but it stems from this piece also of entitlement. I felt entitled, meaning I felt like I was good enough to do whatever I wanted to do with anyone at any time. That was the wild, ridiculous part about my life, is I got to a place where I was ready to use and abuse every single person. Because either in the workplace, I was like their boss, or at the home, I was the husband. So like I had the authority, right? All this kind of BS that doesn't actually help the relationship. So inside of this, I would use and leverage this thinking that I had rights to other people. The narcissist in your life is going to think he has rights to you and to all aspects of you. How many of you know this is true? Type it in the chat. Because when you're in a toxic relationship, he thinks that he has rights to all of your money. He thinks that he has rights to all of your body. He thinks that he has rights to all of you. What you do, what you say, where you go, how you dress. He thinks that he has these rights. Why? Because he feels entitled and he views himself as having ownership of you. This is the part that's really weird. Because you're like, what? He has ownership of me? That doesn't even make sense. He has ownership of you. He views and he thinks of this all the time. That he has control over you. That you are his slave. That you are his servant. And if you don't conform and show up in the way that he wants you to conform, then all bets are off. But this entitlement piece, he's going to continue to lord over you, saying, hey, I want this. This is who I am. You need to serve me. You need to give me this. You need to, and the list goes on and on. But the entitlement piece is massive inside of the relationship. So inside of this, I would have a giant sense of ego. Like there would be a big part of me that would keep showing up in a way that kept having all of this ego that would be in forefront. And the forefront of just saying, hey, this is what I want. This is what I should get. Why are you not doing this? So this entitlement started off early in marriage. Start off with something simple like how you're folding my clothes. Like you should fold my clothes this way. First off, entitlement that she was even folding my clothes, right? Because I'm a big boy. I can fold my clothes, but I didn't want to. So I was like, well, you do the laundry. You're the wife. So like entitlement, right? All of this, I'm trying to be able to share this. Like this is just, there's so much of it that it's hard to even like break it all down. Entitlement in what I was getting fed Like, I remember there's one time that we got into this big argument because I was like, well, this is not as good as my mom's, right? Like the ultimate insult for a wife that's actually trying to cook and help her husband. Now, the ultimate insult of like, oh, you did this wrong. Because I felt so entitled. I was like, I'm the one that's in charge. I do what I want. You're here to be able to serve me. That was the thought process. I didn't actually say that. Okay. So it wasn't a piece that came out and I was like, hey, by the way, just want to let you know, I'm the boss and you're the servant. And so if you want to show up, you can. Just understand that when you do, that it's all about me and it's not all about you. I didn't come out and say that, but that was the thought process. That was the idea. That was how it was demonstrated. That was the evidence that was seen in my relationship for such a long period of time of showing up in a really, really toxic way because I felt like the world revolved around me. I was the best thing ever. The goat, like the person that was in charge, the king of the kingdom with all of the slaves, versus actually acknowledging the queen that my wife actually is. So inside of all this, there is the aspect where the narcissist in your life is going to show up extremely toxic. Maybe you're the guy that's been showing up extremely toxic because of your entitlement. And I need you to hear this. Life's not all about you. Grow up. You don't like it. Tough. I don't really care. But the piece of your entitlement is actually going to destroy all of your life and destroy your marriage and hurt your kids. And you're going to walk away feeling justified of like, well, I was entitled to do that. No. You're just an abusive asshole that's not man enough to actually own it and work through it. So when we talk about this piece of entitlement, when you look at what you expect from your wife, when you look at what you expect from society, when you look at what you expect from friends and family, is it entitled? Or should you actually have to earn her respect? Because you haven't earned it so far with being the abusive coward that you are currently. You haven't actually earned her respect by how you've shown up. You haven't earned her respect by just bringing home a paycheck and then sitting on the couch. Like a trained monkey could do that, let's be honest. You're just providing a paycheck. Whoop-de-doo. You showing up for your wife lovingly. You showing up for your wife like emotionally vulnerable. That's massive. And that's actually a real man. Versus you looking at her as just a piece of meat. You looking at her just as, hey, you're the servant and the slave, the housekeeper. You looking at her and expecting her to do all of these things for you because you've got so much entitlement that your head's stuck up your ass. So when we deal with this piece of entitlement, you need to understand the world does not revolve around you. Now, one of the ways that you can start shifting the world not revolving around you is starting to focus on the world that is around you. And when you start focusing on the world that is around you, you have to bring a different level of appreciation and gratitude to that place and to that world, because otherwise you will focus all of your time, energy, attention, money, and gratitude on yourself. But we can't be doing that, because it's not going to actually help you move forward and actually show up different. So if you don't want to show up entitled and you don't want to have the life that you have right now and you don't want to keep seeing this marriage fall apart and the next relationship fall apart, maybe we should work on you. Maybe we should work on your entitlement. Maybe we should work on how you're showing up on a day-to-day basis, because what you're currently doing is not working. What you're currently trying is crazy because it is not actually producing the results that you want in your life. Maybe that's because you have a high ego and you have a high sense of entitlement. So you look at everyone thinking that they're supposed to serve you, when in reality, nobody's actually looking at you. Nobody's actually thinking about you. Nobody's actually putting you up on this pedestal. It's all you projecting onto other people so you can feel better about yourself. But at the end of the day, you're left with you. You're left with your results. You're left with your actions. You're left with everything in your life right now is a direct result of your choices. That's it. You showing up as a liar, you showing up as a coward, you showing up as a cheater, you showing up entitled, all of these things have led you to where you are right now. The question is, are you actually willing to change it, or do you want to keep living this way for the rest of your life? And don't say you want to change it just so I hear you want to change it. Because one, I can't hear you because it's a video, and then two, you're just going to say a bunch of stuff to help yourself feel better, but then you won't actually take action. This is why the majority of guys do not reach out to raw motivations. One, because they're scared. And two, because they don't actually want true change. They just want the fake change. They want to say, oh, I reached out, but they don't actually shift anything. So inside of this, I want you to consider if you're showing up entitled, if you're showing up as a liar, or a cheater, or abusive asshole, and you're like, hey, I actually want to stop this, and you're willing to put in the work, then reach out. Go to rawmotivations.com. I do work with men that have these toxic traits. I work with men that are abusers, narcissists, toxic, however you want to label it. The label doesn't actually matter. What matters is how you're showing up. If you're showing up entitled and you need to work on this, let's talk. Go to rawmotivations.com today. Welcome back to Toxic Tuesdays. Part of the day of Tuesday is spent on focusing on the toxic traits of a narcissist, but also talking to a narcissist or talking to a guy that is toxic. So if that is you today, then this video is for you. If it's not for you, you can still watch. I'm not saying you can't watch, right? But this video is still going to be a piece where we're going to be focusing on some of the toxic traits and some of the things and the problems that are actually happening inside of being a toxic person. So I've talked here inside of Toxic Tuesdays about me cheating. I've talked about me lying. I've talked about different pieces of emotional manipulation, control, all different types of aspects. Today, one of the topics and one of the pieces that we're diving into is not necessarily just going to be about emotionally and cheating and lying, and all these different things. So one of the things we're going to talk about is gaslighting. And gaslighting specifically, not to everybody else, but specifically to myself. Now, gaslighting is another form of lying, but it is even more so than just lying because it's trying to convince or make a person believe your reality. Now, I want you to consider for a moment, when you're watching this, you gaslight yourself. Right here, right now, you're actually gaslighting yourself on a day-to-day basis. Why? Because you have grown up and got to a place that you have lied to yourself consistently. But it's not just that you've lied to yourself consistently, that you've also got to the place that you've believed your lies. You've started to believe the lies that you're telling yourself, and you're starting to justify the lies that you're telling yourself. This has led you into a place of sedation, of you actually sedating who you actually are, of you actually shoving down who you actually are. What's inside can't experience that. That's not safe. That's not okay. So you keep shoving it down. You keep hiding from it over and over and over. No matter what you do, you keep running away from who you actually are because you're ashamed, because you feel guilty, because there's remorse, because there's multiple things that are there keeping you hidden from who you are. So as a result, you lie and you gaslight yourself. This process that's going on of you gaslighting yourself is one of the hardest ones for you to be able to break because you're going to continue to lie to yourself and to produce a false reality. You're going to create something that is fake. Now, what do I mean by this? It means not just the fact that you're telling yourself that you're lying, but you're also building a false reality. You're creating a different storyline. You're creating a different version of reality that you're believing to make yourself feel better about yourself. So consider for a moment, I've talked about this aspect of stories. We all tell ourselves stories. Who you are right now is the story that you tell yourself about you. You tell yourself a story about you being good enough, or about you being worthy, or about you like looking or acting a certain way of like, I'm so amazing. Like, look at this. You tell yourself a story to help yourself feel that way. But the reality is that story is fake. The story is false. You're constructing and trying to build something to make yourself feel better about yourself, but in reality, nothing's actually changing or shifting or developing, and you're stuck in the same exact shit you've always been stuck in because you've been gaslighting yourself. You've been lying to yourself, but so much so that you believe it. Now, the hard part is if I just asked you the question, where are you lying to yourself today? You would have no clue. You would have no idea of what that actually means. You would have no idea of how to actually move forward in healing yourself. Because of the fact that you don't even know the lies you tell yourself because you've been doing it for such a long period of time. And over the period of time that you've been lying to yourself, you have to realize if you do not shift this mindset, this thought process, the lies that are happening, you will continue to gaslight yourself to believe a reality that's completely fake, that's completely false. Now, this is hard because the lies that you're telling yourself don't appear as lies. They don't actually look like lies. They look like truth. They look like something you're telling yourself that is true or seems to be true or looks or acts or appears true. But in reality, it is not. Now, I had these lies in my own life as well, where I would gaslight myself into believing something that wasn't actually true. One of those lies was that I loved my wife. But there was no evidence. There was no demonstration of that love and of that care. There was nothing of me showing up and saying, hey, I actually love and care and show her this demonstration of this love. I didn't have that at all because I kept cheating, I kept lying, I kept doing all these things where they're mentally and emotionally abusive to her. So there wasn't a place where she would feel safe because I was gaslighting myself. I was lying to myself and I was having myself believe a reality because it was easier to believe that reality than it was to believe the truth. And the truth was I was an abusive asshole that was not willing to show up for her on a day-to-day basis. This is what you're running into and what you're finding and what you're seeing over and over, that you start to gaslight yourself. You start to believe something that's completely not true. And the problem is when you do this, you know even internally that there's something wrong. You know that something doesn't match up. You know that something is not 100% right, but you just keep doing it because it's what you've done for such a long period of time. Maybe it'll eventually work. It'll eventually be the piece that you believe it and then it'll be okay. But you know there's an incongruence there. There's something that you know internally that you're lying to yourself because you're building a false reality. If you're not willing to embrace truth, if you're not willing to embrace the facts, none of your life is going to shift. None of your life is going to change. And you're going to be in the same exact spot forever. So when you get to this place and you're thinking, how do I actually grow, change, and develop who I am? How do I show up honest? How do I show up different? That will never happen until you stop ascribing to the reality that you're currently in. Until you stop thinking, I'm right. Until you stop thinking about the ego. You stop thinking about you being the best person ever. Until you stop thinking and raising yourself up to feel so good about things while you belittle other people, nothing will actually ever change. Because you will tell yourself a lie. You will believe a lie. You will get to the place where you think this is my reality, but in actuality, it is false. It is fake because it's something that you've constructed, but it's not actually authentically you. It's not actually who you are internally. So when you look at this, you start to break it down. You need to understand you lie. And when you lie, you start to believe a different reality. When you start to believe a different reality, anything is possible. The abuse is possible. You getting more and more aggressive is possible. You cheating on multiple people is possible. You starting to hit the person that you claim to love is 100% possible. Why? Because you're constructing a reality that's based on fiction and fantasy. It's not based on truth. It gets you to the place where you get so pissed off that you realize it's a fine line between you getting pissed off and you raging and you just hitting the other person. In fact, you change it in your mind so much that it feels okay to hit the other person because you're protecting yourself from the vulnerability you don't want to feel. You're protecting yourself from the emotions that you're too afraid to deal with. You will find ways and loopholes to shift your mindset so much so that it serves you in the way that you want to be served, but not in truth and not in facts, but in fiction. And in a bunch of lies where you will start to make up a lot of things so that you can believe a certain reality so you feel justified doing what you want to do versus what you actually need to do. So I want you to consider where are you actually lying and gaslighting yourself today? How is this actually affecting you on a day-to-day basis? If you realize that you're lying to yourself and you actually want help with this, I want you to go to rawmotivations.com. Because that will help you actually shift the mindset and the frame of this. You're going to continue to do the same thing over and over and over, expecting different results. And that's the definition of insanity. You're actually doing things that are insane because you keep trying to do things that are not actually shifting. And you're like, well, I'll just try it again. No, because if you keep doing lie upon lie upon lie, building this false reality, nothing actually changes and you stay the same exact person long term. Nothing shifts no matter what. So today when you're watching this, how are you gaslighting yourself? How are you building a false reality that if you look at the facts and you look at the truth of the situation, it's actually different? My false reality was that I loved my wife when that wasn't even true. Because I was lying to her, I was cheating on her, I was emotionally abusing her, all of these things I wanted to say so I'd feel better about myself. But I was just pretending. I was gaslighting myself into believing a reality that wasn't actually real. You're doing the same thing today. But until you see this and come to reality with it, you're going to keep doing the same thing, hoping for different results, not realizing the main reason why you have bad results in your life, why you have a marriage that's failing, why you haven't been showing up in a positive way, why your kids are getting disconnected from you, is all because of you. And your inability to actually work through your emotions and feelings and process it so you can show up as an honest man. But instead, you're gaslighting and believing a lie. If I can help you with this, go to rawmotivations.com today. Would love to help you move forward in the healing process and show you how you can transform your life and show up as an honest man that no longer gaslights himself, no longer stays in this piece of toxicity. If I can help you with this, go to rawmotivations.com today. Welcome back today to Toxic Tuesdays. We're diving into another section, another aspect of lying, and what this actually looks like and what's actually happening inside of the narcissistic abuse that's going on in your life and what's happening from the toxic side as well. So when we deal with narcissistic abuse, you're dealing with someone who is a liar, consistently, habitually, that is lying constantly to many different people in their lives. Now, he might be lying to you, he might be lying to friends and family, he might be lying to coworkers, he's probably lying to everybody to a certain degree. One of the hardest pieces about lying and lying consistently is keeping all of the stories aligned, making sure that they're all straight, making sure they're all figured out, making sure that he doesn't communicate the wrong thing to the wrong person at the wrong time. This is what my life was made up of for a long period of time. I was a consistent liar. It was an habitual thing that happened every single day, all of the time. I was not willing to be honest about who I was, about what was happening, and more than anything I ever lied to everyone else, I was unwilling to be honest with myself. This is one of the core problems that we deal with when you're dealing with a narcissist, is he's not willing to be honest with himself. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness of narcissistic abuse, to help you inside of healing and growing, to be able to transform your life from being trapped in a toxic relationship to actually finding freedom. If you want to know more about what I do, you can click on the link below and go to rawmotivations.com. If you haven't already, just hit subscribe, like, rate, or review, and we'll dive in today inside of Toxic Tuesdays. So when we're talking through this piece of Toxic Tuesdays, part of what we're going after is the idea of what is the toxic trait, and then what do we actually do about it? How do you actually heal from it? How do you actually move forward? That's what a lot of the channel is about. But inside of some of the Tuesday content, I'm just sharing some of my story and sharing some of the piece of, hey, if you struggle with this, this is what we're going to talk about. So if you're a guy that struggles with being toxic in the aspect of lying, this video is for you today. One of the aspects of lying for me was early on. It grew early on in the place of what do I need to say, do, or think to be able to communicate stuff to certain people so that I could still get what I want. It was very selfish oriented, and it was very focused on what do I actually want and how do I get it, even if it means I have to lie, cheat, steal, all of these different things. So it became a habit early on. Now, early on, I got labeled as a liar that was an easy catch. Someone that someone could look at and be like, oh, he's lying. Because I have this like smirk. I have this piece where it'd be like, oh, he's lying because he's giving that smirk. He's giving the guilty smile. And at a younger age, I got caught a lot when it came to lying. But what I realized is I could actually manipulate that. I could actually use that to my advantage so that people would think that I was an awful liar, but then when they needed to lie, it would just roll off the tip of my tongue and they wouldn't know the wiser. So this became a habit early on, childhood, high school, college, marriage, where this just continued. And it continued by the time we got to marriage, it was just very much habitual, and it was very much just like a knee-jerk reaction. It wasn't like I was walking through life being like, I'm going to get in trouble for this, so I'm going to lie about this. It was more like, oh, this popped up, lie. Like very, very quick. It was almost like so instinctual because it had been built up as a habit for such a long period of time. So sometimes you'll have moments where it almost feels like the guy in your life doesn't even know that he's lying. Well, that's because he's been used to doing it for such a long period of time. That's how I was. I showed up for a long period of time, not knowing, not seeing, not understanding that I was actually lying to everyone else, but also that I was lying to myself. If a narcissist is not willing to actually look and understand that he's lying to himself, nothing's going to change, nothing's going to transform. So if you're watching this video and you're a guy that's consistently been a liar and you don't get honest with yourself, just understand the outcomes that you're going to have are not going to be what you want. The marriage that you want is going to fail and is going to fall apart. The direction you actually want to go, the direction you actually think, you're like, hey, I want to be able to have a connected family, a vulnerable connection with my wife. All of those things, they will never happen. Why? Because you're a liar. And if you're not willing to be honest with yourself, you can't be honest with anyone else. If you're not willing to be honest with yourself, it means your wife actually cannot even love you because she doesn't even know you. She doesn't even know what she's loving. She just thinks she's loving something, but it is a lie because you've been telling a lie for such a long period of time. This piece of lying, if you don't stop it, is going to destroy everything. But if you don't stop lying to yourself, it will not just destroy everything, but then you will feel like it wasn't your fault. The results that you have in your life right here, right now, are 100% your fault. If you do not own them, you will stay a victim. And you're not a victim. You're the person who's actually caused all of the shit to happen. So being able to actually own up and understand that you've been lying to yourself is key here. So if you're a toxic guy and you're a guy that's lied, that's cheated, that's done these things to another woman, I want you to understand that if you do not get honest with yourself, nothing's going to change. And the life that you're living right now, however great or bad it might be, is going to be the one that continues over and over. You're not going to find joy. You're not going to find true happiness. You're not going to find true connection because you're lying to yourself. So inside this piece of lying, I had to start figuring out, how do I actually stop lying? It had been ingrained in me for such a long period of time. I couldn't figure out, how do I actually disconnect from it? Because it was an integral part of me. It was like I was trying to pull parts of me out that just like were part of me. Like I couldn't do it. How do I actually stop this? So I actually had a period of time where I had a whiteboard in my office at that time, and I sat down and I wrote it down. I wrote down my like analytical plan of how I was going to track the lies and find the lies and destroy the lies. And it came to a simple place of, let me go ahead and acknowledge, what are the lies that I have? What are the lies that are inside my life right now? Then it got to a place of trying to identify them within a week. And then it got to a place where not just identifying them, but then I would go back and apologize for them in that week. And then I started to close the gap. Okay, 7 days, 6 days, 5 days, more reviews, more different pieces, trying to catch them within 24 hours, trying to apologize for those lies in 24 hours, trying to catch them in the moment, correct myself in the moment. I'm sorry, that wasn't true. Let me tell you what was actually true. Trying to be able to catch this. And for me, it became this piece of closing a gap until once the gap was completely gone, and then there was just honesty. This piece of honesty is one of the hardest things that you will ever do. If you're a toxic guy that hasn't been honest and you feel unsafe being vulnerable because you don't know how to express your feelings and your emotions, like this piece of you being honest is going to feel like a death. But right now you have to have this death in order to actually grow and develop. You actually have to have this death because this version of you no longer is working. This version of you no longer is serving you because it's not moving you towards who you actually want to be. In fact, it's actually dragging you down into a pit. The pit of shame, a pit of guilt, despair, depression, a pit that is going to leave you stuck, but you're going to gloss over it and tell yourself it's not that bad. That it's not that big of a deal. Because inside of doing this, you'll find different ways to lie to yourself. And when you lie to yourself, you'll get to a place that you think everything's okay, when in reality, everything's falling apart. Working on this process of no longer lying was like going to the gym and building muscle. And over time, I could lift heavier and heavier weights, getting closer and closer to truth. So I had to practice. It wasn't a piece that came naturally. It was a piece that I literally had to like drag myself, kicking and screaming sometimes, to a place of being honest, even though it was painful, even though I hated it, even though I didn't like the aspect of being vulnerable. Like with all the growth, with all the development over the past couple of years, like 5 years of doing like the self-aware piece of like being in therapy for 4 years, all of these different pieces, with all of this has been going on, vulnerability is still uncomfortable. It is still not fun. It is still hard to be able to work through different emotions and feelings. And it affects everything else when I don't. So when I struggle with working through my emotions, my feelings, guess who struggles? My wife. She struggles because then I can't actually show up in a way to help support her emotionally. To be able to help lift her up, to be able to say, hey, I get it. I understand. I'm here for you. I love you. I care about you. I can't do that if I'm not working on my emotions, on my feelings. I can't show up in a positive way because I haven't actually processed it. So then she has an emotional trigger. I get emotionally triggered because I haven't done the work required. And oftentimes when I haven't done the work required, it's because I've been a liar to myself, ignoring the problem, ignoring what's happening, not showing up authentic. And as a result, everything else starts to fall apart. This is why when I had a guy look me in the face and say, if you want to be a man, you have to stop lying. It resonated with me in a different way. And it was God just piercing through this man to be able to say, hey, this is what you need to hear in this moment. You are not a man, you are not a father, you are less than simply because you are a liar. And as a result, God can't even work through you. You have no connection to God. So regardless how much you keep saying you're a Christian or going to church or whatever you might do, you have nothing because you are a liar. Nothing can actually come through a liar. This is when I start realizing that he was talking to me. Because that's who I was. I was putting up a mask. I was acting a certain way. I was showing up inside of church. I was reading my Bible. I was checking all the boxes, but I was still a liar. So there was nothing that actually could transform. So for me, lying had to be a piece that I started to actually work through this process step by step. How do I eradicate the lies one by one and shorten the gap? The gap between knowing and understanding and the gap between action, actually making like a difference, changing what I actually said, being like, wait a second, that's actually wrong. And getting it to a place where I could catch it before it even came out. That's the goal. But sometimes you have to have a plan and a path to be able to schedule it down slowly but surely to get to the place that you show up honest. If you're a guy that's struggling with toxicity and you're struggling with showing up as a liar, maybe you've cheated, maybe you don't know how to be able to express stuff, and you're wondering, why is my marriage and life falling apart? I want to be able to help you today. You can go to rawmotivations.com. Would love to be able to talk to you and help you move forward in the healing process today. Welcome back to day 2, Toxic Tuesdays. We had an opportunity the other week to actually share some of my journey talking through cheating, the different affairs, the different things that happen, the different mindsets, thought process. So if you haven't had a chance to watch that video, go back and watch that video. But a lot of times people will ask now, to be like, well, do you cheat now? Are there tendencies now? Do you want this now? Like, what's actually happening now? And that's what I want to be able to talk about today, and also talk about this piece of how to actually stop the cheating, how to actually bring yourself to a place of it no longer being a part of your life. So if you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness of narcissistic abuse. I work mainly with women who are trapped in toxic relationships to help them find freedom. And on Tuesdays, we take more of the toxic spin where I'm talking more to the guys and wanting to be able to just talk to who he is and what is actually going on, so you can actually find the freedom that you need to show up as an honest man. Because if you're not honest, nothing's going to shift and change. We talked about that even the last week of the aspect of lying. But today we're talking about the piece of cheating. Maybe you're a guy that's cheated repeatedly on the girl that you're with, and you keep telling her that you love her and that you care about her, but you keep cheating on her. So we need to just cut everything out and just be able to tell you really quick so that you understand you don't actually love this woman. You're just being an abusive asshole. So inside of this process of cheating, and you're trying to figure out, wait a second, but I actually do care about this person. Nobody cares that you say that. They just care about the demonstration. They care about the evidence, and they care about the results. Consider for a moment that if you go to work and you're supposed to produce a certain result, and all you do is show up and not do your job, but you say, I have a lot of effort, you're going to get fired. Unfortunately, we don't normally have that exact criteria inside of a marriage, or else you'd actually been fired from your marriage a long time ago, simply because of how you've been showing up in a negative and abusive way. But when we look at this, you will think that you've spent so much effort, so much time. You're like, I bring home the paycheck, I do all this stuff. You actually don't do shit for your wife. And that's why we're in this problem. And that's why we're here, because you've been consistently, or on and off, cheating on her. And inside of this, you might be selling yourself a lie that you actually love or care about your wife. That's BS and is not even true. Because you're making a choice to be able to hurt her. And you might be like, well, she doesn't even know. She will eventually know. And you're also still making a choice to be able to pull away from her emotionally, mentally, sexually. And as a result, you're spending all that time with someone else, and you're breaking apart, disconnecting, and destroying your current relationship. And you might go to victim mode. Well, she's doing this. She's not accepting me. I get it. But the problem is, you are the one that's in charge of your results. So as a result, if she's actually pulling away, it's because you're making her feel unsafe. You're not making her feel emotionally secure in you. You're not actually holding space for her. So as a result, she's going to pull away from you, and you're going to pull away from her. Why? Because you're immature and you haven't processed your emotions, and you're just moving on to the next person thinking, this next person will save me. When in reality, nothing actually is going to change. Nothing's actually going to be different. You're just running like a coward a tail between your legs, running to the next person, the next person, the next person, trying to get a fresh face that doesn't understand how toxic you actually are. So now that we've laid that, let's go ahead and talk about cheating. My life was filled with cheating. With my wife, cheating on her, like cheating to a place that I was doing things that were abusive. I was doing things that was causing a lot of gaslighting, mindfuckery that was happening inside of our relationship, with people that were inside of our friend group that I was cheating with, that were interacting with us on a day-to-day basis. It was really bad. And it was really awful, just the emotional gaslighting that was happening to everybody to keep it all afloat and to keep it all together. So then on this process, I'd built these habits of over 5 different people that I cheated with. And it was this cycle, like every year, every couple of years, it'd be this piece of like, well, I guess it's just happening again. I even thought to myself, one of the lame ass excuses that I had was, oh, this is just me. This is just what I struggle with. This is just my addiction. This is my curse. Like I just have to deal with this. Right? Like I'd flip it in like a really weird frame. Like I just have to bear my cross and kind of move through this. Yeah, it was really screwed up because I'd find any way to be able to justify all the things that I was doing. So when we come to this place where we're talking about cheating and you're like, hey, I actually want to stop. One, understand that you have to get really honest. And then 2, you have to understand you have to actually want this for you. So don't get on this channel and be like, oh, my wife said if I don't stop cheating, she's going to leave me. Get off my channel and go somewhere else. Why? Because if you're changing for anyone else, it will not work and it will fall apart. And I've seen this happen every single time working with hundreds of different guys. The whole piece inside of here is you have to decide you want a different life for you. And if that ends up having you connected with your spouse, perfect. If that doesn't, you have to actually grow and develop you so you show up in a positive way. Otherwise, the same thing's going to happen over and over and over and over again. And it's never going to change. So when we're talking through this cheating piece, how do you actually stop it? What does this actually mean? Like I said earlier, many people ask me, like, do you still cheat? Do you still want to cheat? And here's the thing you need to understand. If you sit on the couch and you eat junk food and you don't go to the gym, how easy is it to keep eating junk food? It's really, really easy because that's all you do. You just keep consuming it. This is great. I'm not going to do anything. Why? Going to the gym? That's hard work. Going to the gym? That takes effort. Going to the gym? That takes time. I'm not going to do that. Going to the store and actually meal planning and prepping? That takes time. That takes effort. So there's all these stories that someone will be fat and sit on the couch and not actually do anything for their actual physical body because they're telling themselves stories. The multiple different layers, multiple different aspects of it, telling themselves stories of why they're going to sit there. So inside of this, they become a victim to their circumstances. Then we move into a place where you're like, well, I want to stop cheating. Okay, well, stopping cheating means we have to stop eating the shit and start moving towards healthy. You're like, well, I don't even know how to do that. It happens up here. It starts off with your mindset, your thought process. Because what's going to spiral out is going to be how you think on a day-to-day basis about another person. And how that's going to spiral into thinking and fantasizing and dreaming and imagining about this person, being with this person, texting this person, communicating with this person. It all starts in your mind because what you think and then what you speak and then what you do. That's the order. So you're like, I don't want to cheat anymore. Okay, well, you need to start thinking differently. When you start thinking about the past supplier, you start thinking about the affair partner, you need to start closing those doors. Breaking down how they actually look, breaking down how they actually think, breaking down the process, because otherwise you will sell yourself a version of reality that paints you as the victim and keeps you going from person to person to try to make yourself feel better. So what I had to do is I had to start breaking down the relationships and having in my mind, putting it down so it actually understand, hey, this actually isn't as good as what it actually is. I think it's good. It feels good. It sounds amazing. It feels amazing. But in reality, it's not because it's fake, it's false, it's lies, and it's actually not a true commitment and true investment. This is way easier said than done. So I'm not just glossing over it being like, oh, just do this. No, like you have to change the mindset, which is why I work on rewiring my mindset every single day inside of stacking, changing the frame, the thought that I'm thinking. Then I also had to pivot and I had to put a lot of pieces of gratitude towards my wife because I wasn't thankful for her. I didn't care about her. I cared about what I wanted. So I had to start shifting everything away from me to focus on her. How can I be grateful for her? How can I appreciate her? How can I thank her? How can all these things point me back to her in a positive way? That started to shift my frame as well. And then inside of this, I also had to come to the realization I had never truly tried with my wife. Ever. Because I was always looking at other people. I was always engaged in pornography. I was always moving to another relationship. I was doing all these other things, never even giving her a fair chance. So part of it came down to the simple fact. People ask her, like, well, why did you pick your wife versus the other supplies? Because I decided I should probably give this a chance. Because I never did. And inside of that, I started to realize that it takes more effort to be with someone than it does just to cycle people. But there is a deeper connection, a relationship that is there when you do this. And it's hard because sitting on the other side. So like if you're watching this and you're a guy that's a cheater, sitting on the other side and me saying, hey, you can have a better relationship. You can have a more connected relationship. You can have like a relationship that like blows your mind with your wife if you're willing to be honest, step up as a man, stop cheating, and focus on shifting your mindset so you can focus on her, so you can actually engage in a positive way. That seems foreign to you. Why? Because you haven't even experienced it. Because all you've done is you're like, hey, I don't even know what it'd be like to be healthy. I don't even know what it'd be like to have a lower body fat percentage because I'm still sitting on the couch, shoving my face with chips and thinking this is great, when in reality, I'm just becoming fat and I'm just becoming stupid because I'm not actually moving forward to help heal myself, but instead I'm leaving myself in this toxic state. As a guy watching this, if you're a cheater, I want you to know the shitty results you have in your life are a direct relation to you. That's it. Stop blaming your wife. Stop blaming your kids. Stop blaming your circumstances. Stop blaming your past. Stop blaming the abuse that happened to you when you were a child. Stop blaming all the other shit, because right now you have a choice to make, and that is for you. How are you going to show up as a healthy human? How are you going to show up as a man? It starts with not lying anymore, but telling the truth. It starts with not cheating anymore, but changing your thought process, your mindset, your fantasy, so you actually focus on the right thing. Because if you don't, you're going to continue to go down into this pit of shame and guilt and keep cycling through over and over, which will leave you still sitting on that proverbial couch over and over for a long period of time, telling yourself that you're a victim, making up stories that you actually love and care about your wife, talking and saying so many lies that confuse you to the place that you don't actually change anything about you, but you continue to do just you. When we talk through this piece of cheating and actually healing and growing and developing you, it starts with a level of you being honest with yourself. If you're not honest with yourself, nothing else is going to shift, nothing else is going to change, and the results you've had for such a long period of time will stay the results that you've had for a long period of time. They will not get better, they will not develop, they will not grow. But you will continue to be the same guy that you've always been, that's been a liar, that's been a cheater, and is not moving forward. If this connects with you and you actually want help, not fake help, not just to say, oh, help me, and then you run away. If you actually want to do the work and actually have help doing this, please reach out. If you're a toxic guy that showed up as a liar or cheater, and you're like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, and I actually am willing to put in the work for myself, not for anyone else, then go to rawmotivations.com today.
You've been told it's all your fault, and that makes you feel crazy. No one understands you, and that leaves you in a place of being alone. You've tried to break free multiple times, and that leaves you helpless because nothing you've done has actually worked. It hasn't actually got you free or liberated from this toxic relationship. So you feel crazy, alone, and hopeless. Guess what? That's a lie. Because all it is how you've been raised and conditioned inside of this abusive relationship over and over. And as a result, you've sacrificed your growth, you've sacrificed your worth, and you've been trapped inside of a toxic relationship. What if I showed you the path to freedom? A way for you to actually get free mentally and emotionally from the toxicity that's happening right here, right now. You deserve more. You deserve to be able to heal. And I want to help you with that. If I can help you with that, go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough, schedule a call there, and let's talk.
Narcissists are masters at manipulating you in multiple ways, in multiple aspects. One of the pieces we're going to talk about today is manipulating your emotions. Did you know that he did this? Did you know that he actually works on manufacturing different emotions, constructing different emotions that you're going to have, that you're going to portray, and that he's going to put himself as the higher moral authority over you because of your lack of emotional control or emotional dysregulation, that you wonder what's wrong with you, when in reality, he's sitting behind the scenes being like, I made that and I caused that to happen. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness of narcissistic abuse. I work with women who are trapped in toxic relationships to find freedom, being able to give them closure and clarity about what they're currently going through and how to break the trauma bond, how to eradicate the triggers, and to heal and move forward. If what I have resonates with you and you just connect with it, you're like, hey, I need to talk to this guy, go to rawmotivations.com. Would love to move forward in helping you heal and grow and develop you. Well, when we talk through narcissism, we're talking through a guy that is very manipulative. I was very manipulative years ago in how I showed up for my wife. There'd be different times where she would express her emotions. She'd express her feelings, and it would be quick to discount those. Be quick to find logic that would override the feelings and make her feel less than or make her feel stupid. Because if I could do that, then I would feel better about myself because I didn't want to deal with the emotions that were actually happening. So many narcissists are actually manipulating your emotions because they do not want to deal with your emotions. Have you had that happen before? Have you felt like your emotions are an inconvenience to the toxic guy in your life? If so, type in me into the chat because I'm just curious. If it feels like you've been an inconvenience, your emotions, your feelings have been inconvenience, type in me into the chat right now. When you're talking through this piece of narcissism, manipulation runs rampant. It is one of the 9 diagnostic traits that's going to happen inside of narcissistic personality disorder. And when this is going on, he's going to find different levers that he can pull to be able to manipulate you. One of those levers is the emotion side. Now, from the emotion side, you're going to show up 9 times out of 10 with way more emotion than what he's going to. He's going to control it a lot of times, and then he'll release it in the aspect of rage. It's not really a happy medium. It's not like I'm sort of pissed. It's like, no, I'm either okay or I'm pissed. Like there's not really an in-between with a narcissist. Yes, there is with some of them, but a majority of them oftentimes can go 0 to 100. And you've seen this inside of rageful moments. They're like, I don't even know where that came from. Because a lot of times what's happening is he's trying to be able to train and control you of how you need to act and how you need to show up. Many times you feel like an inconvenience because in his mind, you are. He doesn't want to deal with your emotions. He doesn't want to deal with your feelings. Why? He doesn't want to deal with those because he hasn't actually dealt with them himself. So if you're experiencing a piece of not being good enough or feeling shame or feeling unworthy, that's going to trigger those pieces inside of him, which might make him get upset and yell at you to shut up, to just stop crying, to move on, to get over it, to the past is in the past. Let's just move on. We'll start over. We'll be better because he doesn't want to feel those emotions. He's afraid to feel those emotions. If he feels those emotions, he's like, oh, then I'll never get out of it. Now, not saying any of that for you to feel sympathy for this guy because he's still abusing you and you need to focus on you. Otherwise, you're going to stay for too long and you're just going to stay trauma bonded and you're going to stay triggered and you're not actually going to heal. So I'm not saying that. What I am saying is he's going to leverage you to be able to manipulate your emotions, pulling different levers. Now, there's this aspect inside of narcissistic abuse, which is called manufacturing emotions. Manufacturing, think of it just like he's building emotions inside of you. He's creating scenarios where you actually get to a place where you're experiencing jealousy when you shouldn't be jealous. But he's creating that opportunity for you to be jealous to trigger you. He's talking about an ex a certain way. He's bringing up past things. He's talking about who he's going to meet up with that's just a friend. But he's creating these moments for you to feel jealous. So then he can be like, whoa, like, I didn't want to marry someone that was jealous. Like, what is your problem? Then he's manufacturing these emotions and then putting you down, which puts him in a different role. Puts him in like a teacher role or a parent role. Because then you have different emotions or feelings and he's like, let's work on these because you need help with this. You need to figure this out. You need to go do X, Y, and Z. This is one of the pieces that I've struggled with is holding emotions for my wife because I struggle with holding my own emotions. I'm growing in it and I'm developing in it, but it is still a difficult process. So there's been times in our relationship that I have done a very, very poor job at holding emotions. So she tries to express herself emotionally and vulnerably. And I'm like, yeah, you should probably go talk to someone about that. Like, I think you need therapy. I'm like, maybe you should go talk to a counselor so that they can actually fix that, so they can figure this out. Because otherwise, I struggle to hold the emotions, so I don't want to hold it. I'm avoiding it. I'm like, I don't want to feel those things. So then I push her away. This whole aspect is what is happening inside of the relationship that you're in. He's manufacturing these emotions. He's manipulating your emotions to create a certain scenario, to create a certain outcome. Why? Part of it is he's avoiding his own emotions. Okay, so that's kind of number one. Number two is he's trying to train you. Yeah, that's what I said. He's trying to train you. The narcissist not only views you like an appliance, but oftentimes will view you like a dog. If he trains you a certain way, then you're going to keep coming back for more. So if the dog is in love with the owner and the owner still does things that are negative to the dog still will come back 9 times out of 10. Why? Because it sees this piece of like, oh, I love and I care for this person so much. That's what you've been doing. And he's been treating you like a dog. But he's also been training you. And inside this piece of training you, he's got different training treats that he's giving you. Inside the training treats, it all comes around what you do that is positive for him. You do something good for him, you get a training treat. You do something negative for him, you get beat. He's trying to train you emotionally of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. This could easily be in the aspect of blowing up. You express something, boom, blows up. And you're like, whoa, okay, well, I guess it's not safe to be able to express anything. And basically, he's like, yeah, you're right. You're not safe to express anything because it's all about me. It's not about you. forget you. So you're going to see where he actually starts to manipulate the emotions that are happening in your life to avoid his own emotions and to control and to train you. Training you to actually show up the way that he wants you to show up. This many times will show up in the aspect of him wanting you to dress or act or look a certain way. Sometimes that is very much on the image, overt narcissist side. I need you to act or be or look a certain way because we're going to this event where we're going to meet these people. Like, you need to be this person in my life. An image, right? And he's trying to take his image, attach your image, and make yourselves look better for society. When in reality and behind closed doors, everything is going to hell. And it's falling apart and it's getting really, really negative because he's manipulating you and he's manipulating your emotions. Now, sometimes his manipulation of the emotions will be this circular reasoning and this back and forth. And this piece where he's purposely putting you into a state of confusion by running circles around you to a place where you're like, I don't even know what I'm thinking. I don't even understand. There's another form of just emotional manipulation where he's trying to confuse you, either from a logic standpoint or logic on top of the emotion just to confuse you and how you're showing up on a day-to-day basis. So the goal inside of what he's doing is he needs to be able to manipulate you to avoid his own emotions. He needs to be able to manipulate you to train you like a dog so you know what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. He needs to be able to actually work on this to manipulate you so that he feels secure and in control of the relationship. When you start to rise up in your power and your strength, when you start to rise up emotionally and you're like, hey, this is actually working, I'm actually showing up different, he's going to freak out. And the reason why he's going to freak out is because he starts seeing you, reclaiming power back into your life, reclaiming and rediscovering your own voice. And inside of that, he's like, what do I need to do to shut her down? Rage, one of the easiest ones. Boom, you cower, you get afraid, you get upset. Why? Because he had to do something to get you back under his control. He had to do something to get you back to retraining. You think you can speak to me like that? Get back down. You think you can do this? No way. You think this is how you are? Absolutely not. You're worthless. You're not good enough. And all these things you're going to say and use to trigger you, to beat you down mentally and emotionally. Now, oftentimes it's subtle. Inside the piece of it being subtle, you might have belittling comments or snide remarks. Small, tiny things that don't appear even abusive. They just appear like, oh, he's got a preference, or, oh, he doesn't appreciate this. But when you start adding them up over time, you start to notice, wait a second, he's actually shifting me. He's shifting my mindset. Like, consider your mindset is easily shifted no matter what. You're a human on this planet, you're easily shifted. You look at Instagram for 5 minutes and you're like, oh, now I need to jump on this. Now I need to do this. I watched Instagram and a couple of things popped up in my feed and I went down the rabbit hole of the carnivore diet. And I went down the rabbit hole of the carnivore diet and I was like, oh, this is what I should do. Right? Because it just took that amount of time to all of a sudden shift the mindset. And I'm like, well, they said it. It must be the most amazing thing ever. Right? Because this piece of your mind is going to shift very easily. If it is not grounded in truth, it is not grounded with clarity, you're going to get manipulated and pushed around emotionally so much because he's using different instances and circumstances to convince you that you're not good enough, to convince you that you're worthless. This is all a play and a ploy. If he makes you worthless, then you have no worth, you have no value, and you have to look to him to give you value. So he's trying to be able to put you down so he can look higher, so you can actually keep coming back to him for more supply and more treats as he's training you. The whole goal from a narcissist is to work on the piece of control. How does he actually control it, manipulate you? And when he's doing this, he's trying to make sure that you're falling under certain lines. You're falling under certain steps. You're making sure that you show up in the way that he wants you to show up because it is all about him. It has nothing to do with you. It is all about him. And he's going to continue to manipulate and coerce and shift things around so that you get confused to the point that you just bow down and serve him over and over and over. If you're in a toxic relationship and you see part of this, that you're getting emotionally manipulated, you're seeing how he's manufacturing emotions over and over and over, I want you to reach out for help. Go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough because I want you to help move forward inside the healing process to break the trauma bond, eradicate the triggers, find your power and your strength, and step back into who you're called to be. All right, welcome back. Today is Toxic Tuesday. So part of what we're going to be talking about is the toxicity and the negative piece about narcissistic abuse and also from maybe sometimes a different frame. Inside of today, part of the main topic and the thing that we're going to be discussing and going over is going to be the aspect of entitlement, but specifically in this area of expectations. Did your narcissist expect you to do certain things, to act a certain way, to look a certain way, to be a certain way? What were the expectations inside of your relationship? I would imagine that you didn't have a ton of expectations that you were allowed to actually expect, but he had many different expectations. And oftentimes you'll see the difference be in a very hypocritical way. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness about narcissistic abuse. What I do on a day-to-day basis is to help break women free from a trauma bond, the triggers, the emotions that currently leave them stuck with a toxic guy. I also work with narcissists or toxic guys that show up as liars or cheaters or abusers to help them actually find freedom from their own lies. Because if they don't tell the truth, nothing will change, nothing will ever get better. Well, when you hear this word entitlement, what comes to mind? Like, what's the piece that triggers for you when you hear entitlement? What do you actually hear? What do you actually think? What do you actually understand when someone says that they're entitled? When you're looking at a narcissist, that's what you see all the time. Someone who is entitled, someone who thinks that the world revolves around them, someone who thinks that they're entitled to all the things, all the people, all of the aspects about your relationship. You might have already seen this in the area of him being entitled to your money, to your time, to like your focus, your attention, your energy, to your body. You might have seen lots of different aspects of this already being true in your life. He has a lot of different expectations and entitlement pieces about you. But I want you to consider for a moment, like, what are his expectations of you? Now, in a narcissistic relationship, it's typically all revolving around the narcissist, right? Like, it doesn't revolve around you. You don't actually matter. Your hopes, your needs, your feelings, your dreams, those are discounted because the expectation is all about him. So I want you to think for a moment inside of this expectation, what expectations do you have in this relationship? You might have expectations of it being a healthy relationship, of it being a positive environment, but the problem is he doesn't. The problem is he wants what he wants, regardless of how it impacts, regardless of how it hurts you. So we move inside this piece of this toxicity, the expectations get really real and sometimes can get really dark. The expectations that he has for you can oftentimes be a piece that it doesn't take into account your safety, your mindset, your mental and your emotional safety or support, and all it takes into account is what he wants. This is why the narcissist in your life can put you into dangerous situations. This is why screaming at you down the road while he's driving 90 miles an hour, that is not a problem because he's entitled to that. He has different expectations of what you're allowed or what you're not allowed to do. You've already seen this if you've left the narcissist and he's been very controlling and you've tried to get with someone else and he's threatened you or he's made different jabs at you or a partner that you're trying to get with because he still feels entitled to you. He has an expectation that you are his no matter what. You see, if you boil it down, and especially inside of the really controlling aspects, narcissists view that they own you. So the fact that you try to go to another person, that's this like quote unquote betrayal to the narcissist. So he's going to try to own you even more. He's going to try to stalk you. He's going to try to come after you. He's going to try to come after the other person. There's multiple things that we'll see happen inside of toxic relationships. But the biggest piece is inside this area of entitlement with the expectations that he's placing on you. I want you to consider for a moment, maybe you're on the toxic side. Maybe you're the guy in this environment and you're putting these unreasonable expectations on the gal. Like maybe on a day-to-day basis, you walk into the world and into the room and you think that the world revolves around you and you expect this person to have this like immediate compliance to your wishes and to your needs. Maybe you're the guy that expects the wife to perform and do the things that she needs to do. She needs to fall into her role of cooking and cleaning and doing whatever you think archaically like is what the role is supposed to be. When in reality, you just want a servant. You just want a slave. You just want someone who's going to do what you want them to do. This isn't why you got married. It's not the reason. It's not the main goal. But for you, you thought it'd be cool to have someone else that's a housemate that could take care of different things for you. Or a live-in babysitter so they can take care of your stepkids from the last kid, from the last person that you were with. You have these expectations that are oftentimes unreasonable. How do I know they're unreasonable? Because if those expectations were placed back on you, you'd freak out. If those expectations were something that was placed on you, you would get so mad, you'd get so pissed off. You'd be like, can't believe you're expecting me to do this. Can't believe you're talking to me this way. Can't believe you want me to do this. Yeah. Because narcissists will put unreasonable expectations on other people, placing different things on someone else, making them feel obligated that they have to do something quickly or they have to follow through. This like immediate compliance piece. You need to follow through and do what I want you to do in that moment. As a narcissist, I had many expectations on my wife. Expectations that were oftentimes unreasonable. Expectations that oftentimes were stupid. There's an expectation early on that she fold my laundry just right. And if she didn't, then I'd berate her and belittle her. Can't you fold laundry? Don't you know how to do this? I've showed you like 20 different times. Yeah, not happy and not proud with that. But the expectations were so high, it was stuff that she couldn't attain to, stuff that she couldn't reach. I remember one time getting all pissed off because like the food that she made didn't taste good. And the reason why it didn't taste good is because it was different noodles that she used in the food than what my mom would use. Yeah, ultimate like insult, right? Comparing her food to my mom's. Like multiple things that were degrading and belittling her and using this piece of, I expect this from you. I expect better. This got my wife into a place where she felt like she had to be perfect. Even now, there's different triggers that she'll struggle with that because she has that feeling, that piece inside of her that still goes back to the trauma bond, still goes back to the triggers that she has to show up perfect. But the problem is, in her trying to show up perfect meant she had to mask herself. She had to hide who she actually was. Because at that point, I wasn't willing to actually accept who she was. I wasn't willing to actually accept what was actually inside. I wasn't willing to accept her as she was because I only wanted to accept me. Everybody else was an inconvenience. Everybody else was a problem. Everybody else was an issue. But I could never accept anyone else because I couldn't even accept myself. Wasn't willing to actually see and hold space for me. Couldn't hold space for anyone else. So I had these unreasonable expectations. And I viewed everything needed to revolve around me. I had expectations at work. You had to show up. You had to be this person. You had to act this way. You better not disrespect me. There's multiple expectations that I held that in totality were toxic. Like in the whole were ridiculous. But I had different expectations that people had to have and what I needed from them. I had expectations inside of the affairs. What they could or couldn't do, who they could or couldn't talk to. Expectations that if you're with me, you can't be with someone else. But I was with someone else because I was with my wife and I was cheating on them. So there's this multiple like back and forth. All of it doesn't make logical sense, but in my mind, I wanted what I wanted. So there's these expectations that I would place on other people. And the expectations oftentimes would produce this obligation. And the obligation, whether it was a enjoyment or whether it was a pain for them, it didn't matter to me. What mattered is I got what I wanted. What mattered is it felt good in the moment. It was this little high, this little happiness piece in the moment that I got what I wanted. Do you see this? It's extreme selfishness. It's extreme, like pointed in a way of being like, I just want what I want. Like a toddler with no bounds of like what he can actually do. That was all my expectations, all the pieces that I was pushing on other people. And oftentimes his expectations didn't even make sense. Like being with an affair partner and not wanting them to be with someone else. Even though I was with them and also with my wife. But I was jealous of the other person. I wanted to control. I wanted to have these expectations of like, what are you doing? Where are you going? Who are you with? Oh, what happened? There's so many different expectations here that just produce more and more toxic environments. So I want you to consider on two sides. Maybe you're the narcissist watching this today. Maybe you're the guy. Maybe you don't like the label. Who cares? Maybe you're the liar that's watching this. Maybe you're the entitled person that's watching this. Now, I want you to consider, where do you actually feel like you're putting these expectations on someone else? Where do you actually see expectations that if you took the same expectations and put them back on you, the same standards that you're trying to push, the same bar raising that you keep doing on someone else, if you put it on you, how would that feel? How would that look? Could you actually handle it? Probably not. Because majority of the time, if you're at this place and you're realizing that you might be a liar, or you might be entitled, or you might be a narcissist, you couldn't handle anything that you give to someone else. You're too weak-skinned, you're too shallow, you're too much of a coward to actually deal with you. So you try to just control and manipulate everybody else so that you can live on top of your cowardly throne of feeling better about yourself. Maybe you're watching this today and you're on the other side and you're the person who's had all these expectations placed upon you. What I want to encourage you today is just a simple aspect that these expectations and your lack of meeting these expectations do not define your worth, do not define your value. They don't. They're completely different. They're completely separate. And understanding that the person that's doing this to you is manipulating because he keeps moving the goalposts, moving the bar. Here's my expectation. Oh yeah, here's my expectation. Oh yeah, here's my expectation. Oh yeah, here's my expectation. And it never stops. Like, you're never going to attain this perfection that he's looking for, because he's always going to move the bar. And if you did, think of it this way, think of it logically. If you did attain the perfection and he didn't move the bar, he would freak out, because at that point he knows, oh, all the issues in the marriage, it's not because of her, because she did everything that I asked her to do. It's because of me. And he's not going to do that, which is why it's easier to move the bar than it is to deal with himself. The guilt, the shame, the things that are going on, it's easier to run from it than it is to actually confront it and actually deal with problems on a day-to-day basis. If you're listening today and you're a guy and you're struggling with lying, cheating, abusing, like this piece of entitlement, you're not sure how to heal from it, once you go to rawmotivations.com, click on the place to talk to me, and let's move forward. If you're a woman that's dealing with this and you have this entitlement piece that's placed upon you and you have unreasonable expectations in your life, you might be in a toxic environment. Reach out. Go to Raw Motivations as well, and let's see about talking today to help you move forward in your healing and in your freedom. Welcome back to Toxic Tuesdays. On Tuesdays, we're diving into more of the toxic and the negative side for the narcissist and what's actually going on inside of the lies, the abuse, and the things that are happening with narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness about narcissistic abuse. What I do is I help actually liberate women from toxic relationships by their mindset, by their thought process, to eradicate the trauma bond, the triggers, and to move forward in the healing process. Inside of this, it's already opened up the door for me to be able to work with different guys that have shown up as the narcissist, as the toxic, abusive asshole in the relationship that has actually disintegrated the marriage or the relationship. These guys that have reached out have been guys that have been liars or cheaters or abusers, and they start to see and resonate with some of my videos and some of what I posted saying, hey, I want help too. And with those guys, I'm willing to work with. So if you're a guy that is dealing with narcissistic personality disorder, or you're a guy that's dealing with being a liar or a cheater, or you find your marriage falling apart, would love to be able to talk to you. You can go to rawmotivations.com, click on the breakthrough session for men, and let's talk. Let's see where you're at, and let's help you move forward in this process. Today, one of the pieces we're talking about is gaslighting, but specifically this area of gaslighting to myself, what this actually means and what this actually looks like. I believe that the narcissist is the first person to gaslight himself. I believe that you, as a man, are the first person to gaslight yourself, simply because you have to lie to yourself about what's actually going on. You have to lie to yourself about the toxicity that you are and that you're doing and that you're portraying to your wife, to your significant other, to whoever it might be. But this whole piece of gaslighting has to happen eternally first. Has to happen for yourself first. It's not just that you're doing it to everybody else, you're doing it to yourself. And as a result, there's parts of you that start to believe that what you're actually creating inside of your mind is actually true, when in reality, it is not. You live in a fiction, in a fantasy world, hoping and thinking and praying that maybe this might be not what it actually is. But the reality that you're avoiding is simply yourself. You're avoiding the shame of what you've actually done. You're avoiding the shame of who you actually are. You're avoiding the shame that you're actually incongruent. Like, if you look at your life and you look at what's actually underneath the surface, you start to realize that what's underneath the surface you actually don't like. Because what's underneath the surface is a man that actually isn't showing up as a man at all. But instead, we see a coward. We see a guy who can't tap into his emotions. We see a guy that's running away from himself. This produces a big level of guilt and big level of shame, which is why you go and you sedate in many different ways. You lie to other people to be able to hide the shame that you feel. You drink so that you can numb out the pain. You take drugs so you can avoid it and step into your fantasy reality. You move everything away from that feeling of the hurt and the pain of who you actually are inside. When you're in this place, you start to learn how to gaslight yourself. And you have to gaslight yourself before you can gaslight anybody else, because you have to tell yourself a bunch of lies. And not just the fact that you're telling yourself lies, but you have to tell yourself this lie over and over and over again until you believe it. That way it becomes your new reality, your new fantasy of what's actually going on. You see, gaslighting is like lying, except it's like 2.0. And gaslighting is taking a lie and then taking that to a step further and making that other person question or doubt their current reality, the things that they're struggling with or where they currently are. You, as a toxic guy, are coming into the picture, and you're not just looking at reality and then doubting it. You're looking at reality and then you're changing it to avoid the shame and the guilt, to avoid how you feel in the moment, to avoid the toxicity, the incongruence of like, wait a second, I'm saying that I love my wife, but I'm actually cheating on her. Man, I actually just love my wife. Yeah, that's it. You're lying to yourself. But the problem is you've done this for so many times and for so many years, you've gotten to the place that you've been believing your lies. Now, they might not even be looking at you like lies. Like you might look at them and be like, it's not lies. I'm not lying to myself. I don't know what you're talking about. But you're not telling the truth of who you actually are to the world. You're not telling the truth of what you've actually done. You're not telling the truth to your partner, to the people in your life. You're hiding, you're sedating, you're running away from the reality of what's actually going on and who you actually are. Inside of this, I want you to consider this whole process of your growth, of your development, has to come down to a simple aspect of you telling the truth. But more than you telling the truth to your wife, to your kids, to your coworkers, to your pastor, more than you telling the truth to anyone in your life, you telling the truth to you. Because if you don't tell the truth to you, nothing else matters. Nothing else is going to change. You might be thinking, I'm not a liar. I want you to consider we're all liars. The difference is the lies that you have conscious or are they subconscious? You might have a conscious lie that says, hey, I love my wife when you actually don't. But I do because I say I do. I do because I provide. No, you don't because you're a cheater and you're a liar. Therefore, you don't love. You don't like to hear it, but you need to hear it. Because your actions speak more than your words. I don't give a shit about your words. Because your words mean nothing. To me and to her. They mean nothing because you've been saying them over and over and over again, but in reality, nothing's actually changed. Nothing has actually happened at all. There's been no transformation inside of you, and all you do is keep showing up, saying different things with no different actions. You're gaslighting yourself. You're making yourself believe that there's a reality when you're actually putting in the work, but you're not actually putting in the work. It's like the guy that goes to the gym and he's like, yeah, I'm more fit because I go to the gym, but he doesn't actually work out at the gym. He just goes to the gym, sits around, watches everybody else, makes himself feel better because everybody else is working out, and he feels all pumped up and motivated because he went to the gym. But in reality, he didn't do anything. This is currently how you are in your marriage. You as the toxic guy, the liar, the cheater, the abuser, aren't doing anything. You're saying that you want to do stuff. You're saying that you care. You're saying that you want to be better, but in reality, you're not actually doing anything at all. There's no difference, there's no shift, there's no change inside of you. There's simply you showing up in the same abusive, aggressive way over and over and over. Wondering why you have anger issues, wondering why you have a short fuse when she talks, wondering why you're triggered about this, wondering why about this. But it all just keeps happening over and over and over again because you're lying to yourself. You're lying to yourself of who you actually are. This space of being radically honest with yourself seems like impossible. Seems like a reality that you can never even tap into, and that's what I thought. I thought it was a reality I could never tap into because I never even gave it a thought. I never even had this idea in my mind that I was a liar to myself. I was telling myself that I was a good guy, when in reality, I was abusive mentally and emotionally. I was telling myself that I was a faithful husband. In reality, I was cheating on my wife, but I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to acknowledge it. I didn't want to see it. I wanted to avoid the facts. If I could avoid the facts, then I could live in my fantasy world and make myself feel like I was the most amazing person ever, when in reality, I was a piece of shit. Because I didn't care about my wife. I didn't care about my kids. I didn't show up. I didn't demonstrate that on a day-to-day basis. And right now, as you're watching this, neither of you. Because you as the toxic guy have been struggling with this piece of you actually showing up honest. But you don't even think that you're showing up as a liar. So it's hard for anyone to work with you. Simply put, you have a wife or you have a spouse that maybe keyed you into my videos and are like, hey, I think you need to watch this guy. But if you don't actually realize that you're lying to yourself, there's actually nothing we can do. Like you're actually on a dead-end road where you're just like, oh, I love my wife, but you're cheating on her. Well, I care about my wife, but you're abusing her. And if you don't actually see that there's some facts there that are proving that you don't actually care about these people, but you're actually hurting and abusing, nothing's actually going to change and you'll never get better. So until you actually come to terms with you're a liar, nothing's going to change. Until you actually see that you're gaslighting yourself to believe a reality that's actually not real, nothing's going to change. And we're going to be on the dead-end road. That's why your partner, the wife, the relationship that you're in, your partner, if she sees that you haven't started to be honest and vulnerable and open to this consistency of change, she should run. She should leave because she shouldn't be around a toxic asshole like you if you're not willing to actually be honest with yourself. Now, I get it. You've been lying to yourself for such a long period of time. You don't even know what's right. You don't even know what's wrong. You don't even know what's up or down. You're kind of confused just in life. Well, you haven't had tools to be able to process the emotions. You haven't had tools to be able to work through you, your mindset, your thought process, but instead you've been stuck in this endless loop of running and sedating and hiding and telling, and then moving back through the same process over and over. Running and sedating and hiding and telling, and then going back through all over again. Are you tired? Are you tired of always having this loop, this karmic cul-de-sac that just keeps looping you over and over and over and over again, but you don't actually have anything different in your life? Like, if you look at your life now versus like 5 years ago, your life isn't any better. In fact, it's been on this decline. Relationship-wise, your body-wise, maybe even your business, your focus on you, your kids, everybody. You see it on a decline simply because you're not happy. You're not fulfilled. You have no idea what joy actually is. Like, I talk about joy and you're like, yeah, no clue. Because you can't even tap into those emotions, because you can't even feel those emotions right now, because you're so heavily sedated by the things you've been doing, by the things you've been telling yourself. You're emotionally constipated with all the shit that's been packed inside of you, but you haven't released it. You haven't actually worked through it. So it leaves you in a place where you're like, I don't even know what to do. That's where I want you to reach out. Because if you're a guy that's watching this today and you've been a liar, you've been a cheater, you've been an abuser, and you start to realize and identify with the things that I'm saying here, the things I'm saying on my channel, you start to realize, hey, that actually might be me, then we need to have a talk. We need to sit down and let me actually walk you through the process and the step-by-steps that I've worked through to be able to shift my mindset, my thought process, to ungaslight myself in the reality that I was living, so I could actually stand up as a man, so I could actually be confident in who I actually am. Versus keep telling myself that this is a false reality and trying to believe something that I'm actually not, and trying to say that I'm a good guy while I'm actually being abusive. All of these things are lies that will keep you back from actually being the man you're called to be. So some of this might resonate with you. Some of this might be like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And great, keep scrolling, because you're not the person I want to work with. The person I want to work with is the person that actually is here and that's like, hey, I actually resonate with this. I actually see this. I actually understand that I'm stuck emotionally, that I'm stuck mentally, that there's pieces that I don't know how to unlock. That's who I want to talk to. So if you're watching this today and you're a guy that's dealing with this and you feel toxic, or you realize, hey, I've shown up as a liar consistently, or I've shown up as a cheater, or I can't even be authentic with my emotions, I don't even know how to process this, then I want you to reach out. Gonna have a link down below in this video, but you can always go to rawmotivations.com, click on the breakthrough call for men. Want to be able to talk to you and see where you're at to be able to help you move forward. Not just to save your marriage, but to save you from continuing in this cycle of being the abusive guy that you are right now. Welcome back to Toxic Tuesdays. Toxic Tuesdays are where we deal a little bit more on the narcissistic, the liar, the cheater, the abuser side, and we're not necessarily focusing as much on the victim or the survivor or the woman that has been stuck with the toxic abusive asshole. And inside of this, it might be you tune in today and you're like, this doesn't really resonate with me. Well, you can send this video to your ex and be like, hey, asshole, this is what you're dealing with, and this is the problem that you gave me, and you might want to fix this. But if you don't, that's totally fine too. Or you could just skip the video and you can come on and visit us tomorrow. So anyways, this is what Toxic Tuesdays is. So just hang on for that. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel that has ruined my life with lying, cheating, abusing, emotionally manipulating other people to get to a place of understanding, hey, there is no change that's going to happen without me changing. I can continue to be a victim in my life and pretend and look and think that maybe this is all going to work out. But at the end of the day, I keep having the same crappy results simply because of me, how I'm showing up, what I'm doing. And one of the reasons why I had all of these crappy results, one of the reasons why I had these results that I hated, and then I turned around and played the victim so that I would feel better about myself because woe is me, everybody leaves me, my wife doesn't love me, all these stories that I would create was simply all down to the piece that I couldn't stop lying. I lied, and that was just a common piece that was in my life. I would eat, I would drink, I would sleep, I would lie. It was just a part of my MO. It was part of what I did. And it got to be a place that it was part of who I was. It was part of just my MO, my ingrained idea and thought process, part of my programming, that if I was talking, I was also lying. Many people like to use the phrase, like, how do you know when a narcissist is lying? When their mouth is moving. Because they always are filled with so many lies. Everybody is filled with a lot of lies. Lies that they see and acknowledge, lies that they don't understand, don't believe, lies and limiting beliefs that they're putting on themselves that are actually not even true. But we tell ourselves lies all the time. The problem was I was stuck. I was stuck in a loop of lying. No matter what I was doing, it wasn't getting better, it wasn't stopping, but I was continuing and perpetuating this cycle over and over and over and over again of continuously lying to myself and to other people. Now, to other people, you kind of expect that, right? You expect to lie to other people. You expect the narcissist to lie to you. You expect him to lie to his work. You expect him to lie to his family. You expect him to lie to everybody. But the one thing that we don't normally think about is the narcissist lies to himself. Right? The person that's lying to other people has to lie to themselves to justify that it's even happening, to justify that the lie is okay. So for me, I would have to spin my thought process and my lies so that I could justify what I was saying, so I could justify what I was doing. Many times this meant I had to paint myself as the victim, that it wasn't my fault, that it was my wife's fault, that it wasn't my fault, that it was someone else's fault, that it was something else besides me. Because I didn't want to admit that I was the problem. I didn't want to admit that I had lies in my life. This is why I would always move the bar. I would always say, well, yeah, that's good, but you didn't do this. But it wasn't this. I would always move this achievement piece for anybody in my life so they could never be good enough. Because I had to be good enough. I had to be enough for me, but I wasn't willing to see that. And so instead of learning how to self-support myself, I continued to move the bar for everybody else, making other people try harder, other people try more. Because if I could get them to try more, then it would show them how they're inadequate and I'm sufficient, how they're inadequate and I'm good enough, how they're inadequate and I'm the best thing ever. But all of this stemmed from a foundation and a bed of lies. I had to continue to lie to myself. Now, if you've heard of the phrase gaslighting, it's this piece of where you're trying to shift reality to be able to confuse the other person that they're not just being lied to, but they also can't even trust their own senses. They can't trust what they see, what they hear, what they experience. Instead, they have to believe the abuser or the narcissist. They have to believe the lies that he's telling. So for me, I had to gaslight other people to get them to believe my reality. But at the same time, I had to gaslight myself into believing my reality. Because I knew the things that I was doing was wrong. I knew the things I was doing were abusive and emotionally manipulative. I did not care. This is one of the hardest truths that most people do not want to hear. The toxic guy in your life doesn't care about you. Now, you might be watching this and you're the toxic guy. And you're like, what? Yeah, I do. I love my wife. Okay, prove it. Because you don't by your actions. You don't by how you're showing up. You don't by your lies. You don't by all these pieces that you put in between you and your wife, you and your spouse, you and your partner. And it's put a place where you can't actually grow or connect. You can't actually love the person because there's such a wall and divide. This is why you actually can't love your partner. You can't love your partner because there's a wall of ego between you and between her. So the reason why you're on this side and you're stuck lying is because it's all this fake bullshit that you're trying to be able to put up to make yourself feel better about yourself. Well, if I lie, then I don't have to feel bad. If I lie, then I don't have to feel shame. If I lie, then I don't have to feel guilty or remorse. I don't have to deal with her feelings. I don't have to be inconvenienced. If I lie, then it's okay. And you continue to perpetuate the lies over and over and over again, leaving you in a place that you don't actually move and you stay stuck and you get tired and frustrated of your own result that you are creating because of your lies. So the question for you today is, are you stuck lying? Like, are you stuck in this perpetuation of lying? Like, no matter what you do, you keep lying to yourself, to other people. You keep telling yourself that it's okay. You keep telling yourself that you're a good guy. You keep telling yourself that you love and you care for your wife and your kids while you continue to do stuff where she's crying in bed at night and you check out because you don't actually care. You say you care, you feel like you care, but that is a lie. You're lying to yourself. And the problem is, narcissist or not, I don't actually give a crap whether you are or not. What I care about is that you're a liar. Because if you don't understand and see that you are a liar and you're lying to other people and you're lying to yourself, nothing's going to change and nothing's going to get better. You're going to stay stuck in your fantasy reality and live out this fictional life forever, having you be the good guy while you continue to manipulate and abuse other people. This is going to be your life. So when you're sitting in the corner all alone and she's left you because you keep acting like an asshole for such a long period of time, you start to realize, hey, I am stuck here and there's no one else that's coming to save me and there's nothing else that I can do because I'm the one that created this mess. And you created the mess because of your lies. If you do not find truth, you will run into the ground. If you do not find truth, you will end up hitting your rock bottom and there won't be anything else to catch you. Simply because your lies start to erode your foundation of who you even are. Take away all single pieces of connection and love and clarity between you and any other person. Because the lies destroy. Are you stuck lying? Like if you look at your life right now, do you see yourself lying in random instances, like randomly? Like you see yourself lying and you're like, I don't even know why I lied. That was just a habit. Well, then we need to stop the lies. If we cannot eradicate the lies, then we can't institute any change in your life. The life that you're living right now will continue to be the life that you live forever. There won't be a change. There won't be a difference. This will just be your status quo forever. Because the lies have to change. They have to shift. If we do not shift them, you stay stuck permanently. You stay stuck for a long, long, long period of time. When I got to a place where I understood that I had lies and that I was stuck in this cycle of lying, I had to get so analytical about it that I would actually catch it. Because otherwise, the emotional side of me wouldn't catch it at all. So I had to get to a place where I started evaluating on a weekly basis. Did I lie this past week? Yeah, I think I did. Here's when I lied. Okay, I need to go ahead and confess that. Then I had to start shortening it. Did I lie in the past 48 hours? Did I lie in the past 24 hours? Did I lie in the past day? Trying to get to a place where I start to catch the lies faster and faster, because the goal is just to shorten the gap. Like if I can shorten the gap from me catching the lie a week later to me catching the lie as soon as it comes out, that's progress in my mind. So I started scripting it out. So I started like saying, this week, this is what I'm going to focus on. And I got to a place where I would say the lie and then I'd be like, oh, actually, that's not right. It was actually this. They were small. They were like minute. They were like silly little things that I was lying about. But I had to start shortening the gap so I could actually catch them. Then I get to the place where I would start to catch it before it come out. And so instead of saying the lie and having to repent about it right then and there, I just wouldn't say the lie. I'd be like, let me rephrase this. Actually, it'd be this. Because I was getting clear with myself. I was bringing myself like one step at a time closer to truth. Because I started to realize if I kept all the lies, it would keep destroying my relationship. It would keep destroying the life that I wanted. Early on, it was not about a piece of, let me save my relationship. I love my wife so much. Let me save that. It was simply a piece of, I don't want to be this way anymore and I don't want these results. If that means we're together, great. If that means we're apart, great. Like I didn't care. All I cared about was like, I am sick and tired of this dead end cycle that I cannot get out of. That I keep lying to myself and lying to other people. No matter what I do, it doesn't get better. I was just pissed off. So there's a place that you need to get to that's almost pissed off where you're just like, I am tired of all the shit that I've created because all of it is on you. It's not on anyone else. No one else gave you this life that you currently have. You created it. You created your current circumstances that you don't like. That's all from you and your pattern of lying in your life. Because it hasn't allowed you to stand up in your truth. It hasn't allowed you to be authentic and own the things you've done because you're too scared. Because of the shame, because of the guilt, because of things you're too unwilling to process because you don't know how. You don't have the tools to be able to do it. You don't have the process to be able to deal with the emotions and feelings. So as a result, you run and hide. You sedate. You lie. So you don't have to feel the things you don't want to feel. All of this is me. And it's how I used to show up. It's how I used to be and the things that I used to struggle with. If you want to learn more about how I actually bought the roadmap, how I actually went through the process to find freedom mentally and emotionally, to get unstuck from the lies that currently held me hostage, the same patterns over and over that were leading to dead-end results that I didn't like. If you want to understand how to do this, then I want you to go to rawmotivations.com. Click on the breakthrough call for men. If it resonates with you and you've been a man that's shown up as a liar, I want to talk to you. Click on the breakthrough call for men, watch the video. If it resonates with you, fill out an application and let's talk. Because if you're resonating today with what I'm talking about on Toxic Tuesdays, we need to talk. Go to rawmotivations.com, click on the breakthrough call for men, and let's talk today. Welcome back to Toxic Tuesdays. Toxic Tuesdays is where we talk to the toxic side of the things that we're doing and the things that are happening and the things that are going on with the narcissist. And particularly on this Toxic Tuesday, we're going to be talking about cheating. Talking about, hey, you're stuck in a relationship where you are cheating. You are in a place where you continue to abuse and manipulate, and you're not sure, how do you actually stop? What's actually going on? How do you actually fix it? Now, I've talked some about my journey, and I've talked some about like the habits and the different pieces of cheating, but there's different things that need to stop. There's different things that need to break for cheating to stop. And the problem is the majority of times guys are not willing to stop. They're not willing to be honest, and they're not willing to actually focus on the problem. So as a result, it keeps happening. Now, if you're a guy that's been showing up and you keep cheating on your wife or on your partner, what I need you to understand is until you get honest about the fact that you're still cheating and that you're still a liar, nothing's actually going to change. You're going to be in the same dead-end rut over and over and over, wondering, why can't I fix this? Well, you can't fix it because you're a liar. And until you get to a place where you want to be honest with yourself and admit to what you're actually doing, nothing will actually change. So you could say, hey, I like this life and I like going back and forth, manipulating, cheating, and having a dead-end relationship that doesn't actually go anywhere. That's your life and that's going to continue to be there. Or you could be honest and you can actually say, this is not what I want, and how do I actually break it? If that's you, let's talk. There'll be a link down below that you can talk and that we can click for you to be able to actually access a video from me and be able to see, is it a good fit to be able to work with me as far as breaking the things that you've shown up as a cheater, as a liar, as an abuser. This is why it's Toxic Tuesdays, because we're talking the majority of times to the liar, the cheater, the abuser, the narcissist, but we don't define, we don't label, because that really doesn't matter. What matters is you've been a liar and you haven't shown up honest to you and to others, which is why you're here. When we're talking through this piece of being a liar, being a cheater, we have to have habits that break. We've talked through some of the habits that need to break inside of lying, but what about the different habits that need to break inside of cheating? Now, cheating oftentimes has a gateway that's going to open up. There's going to be multiple things that happen before them. There's going to be lying, which needs to happen before you can even cheat, right? You're not typically going to go out and cheat and be like, hey, I cheated last night. Just want to let you know. Thought it was great and hope you had a great day today. See you later. No, you're not typically going to be honest about this type of thing. So lying is going to be one of the gateways. Lying has to happen and be a part of your life in order for you to get to a place of cheat. And on top of that, a lot of times people will step into the cheating world step by step. Sometimes you'll jump onto the deep end, start a relationship with someone else right away. Other times it might be different aspects. You might be with prostitutes. You might be with an emotional affair. You might be inside of pornography. All different things that are stepping stones oftentimes to get to a place where you're actually doing the deed. Now, sometimes narcissists want to be very particular. Well, I didn't actually have sex with her, so therefore I wasn't cheating. Nope, you lied and you cheated by not being with the wife that you said you were going to be with and giving your emotional intelligence, heart, and life to another person because you weren't man enough to actually be honest with your wife. Again, going back to the liar piece. But we'll jump right in. So when we're dealing with this piece of cheating, one of the doors that's the easiest to be able to open up into the cheating world is just going to be pornography. Like when you start looking and engaging more and more with pornography, you're not just opening up the door to like instant gratification, which is going to make it hard in other areas of your life, but you're also opening up the door to being like, oh, look at the possibility of these people being with other people. Why can't I have that kind of person? Why can't I have that woman with that body? Why can't I have that guy? Why can't I be in this? And so many times you're going to start to have and live the fantasy first off. So one of the habits that we need to break is the pornography. If you have pornography, you're going to be leading yourself oftentimes to cheating. Does it happen every time? No, not necessarily, but you're still like hurting your relationship. Many people would have say, hey, pornography is cheating. It's like mentally and emotionally cheating on your spouse because you're using and you're looking at other women to get off, to feel better about yourself, and you're not actually involving your partner and your spouse. That's a piece of it too. Pornography oftentimes opens the door, just opens up the possibility, opens up the ideology of like, oh, this could be me. I could be that person on the screen having sex with that person. So you see this happen and you're like, oh, let me actually build up the fantasy. You build up the fantasy, then you start to try to figure out, how do I actually reenact this? How do I actually make this happen in real life? And so you get to a place where you start interacting with other people, and that's where you start having these moments where you either start coming off sexual, you start flirting, you start putting out the sexual energy, whatever it might be. But oftentimes it'll open up the door on that initial piece. Now, depending on where you are, you can open up that door with anything. You can open that door with Instagram, with TikTok, with Twitter. Like you can open up that door with anything and be like, oh, that looks good. Let me look at more. Let me look at more. And all of a sudden you find yourself into pornography. Then you find yourself into cheating. It's a very easy slide into it. When we're dealing with this piece of breaking the habits, it means we have to break addictions along the way. An addiction to lying, an addiction to cheating, an addiction to pornography, an addiction to, like, we're breaking different addictions that you become addicted to that get you to the place of being willing to cheat. The only reason why you're willing to cheat is because you're not looking at the consequences and you're also justifying it. Typically, people don't go into a cheating relationship or they don't go into a place of cheating on their spouse when they're like, hey, I'm in a loving, committed relationship. I enjoy it and I really appreciate it. And I also want to go cheat as well. People normally don't do that. They're typically looking to be able to solve and fix something, a unhealthy coping mechanism, an unhealthy way to be able to process things that they're unwilling to process, typically because they're already running from their own lies. Again, lies are a huge piece that's coming down into this. Now, maybe it's a piece where we just need to break habits of you flirting and you interacting with other women. Like, it could be a place where you need to step back and not be communicating with women at all. This is not a good place. This is not a good feel. This is not something that's healthy for you, because it can lead to that emotional connection, can lead to that sexual piece. That's a piece do you need to evaluate as well. Do I need to have relationships? Well, I have this one friend and she's amazing. Is that really necessary? Well, yeah. Why? Because if you actually say you care and you love your family, then you'd be willing to do whatever it takes. The problem is the majority of cheaters aren't willing to do whatever it takes unless it's about the cheating. Then they'll do whatever it takes. But actually, like salvaging their life or their marriage or like working on their relationship, yeah, that's too difficult. So they're going to typically run away and do everything that they want to do versus actually investing time and energy into who they actually are, shifting that piece. Could be a simple piece is not interacting, not texting other women. Consider for a moment, maybe you've already had a pattern of cheating and you're like, hey, I want to get better. But you won't even let your wife see your phone because you're like, that's an invasion of privacy. Bullshit. That's your own pride and ego that's putting her out and saying like, oh, I need to have privacy. You don't deserve privacy because you're a liar. You don't deserve privacy because you were a cheater. Doesn't mean she has to go through and expose every single thing that's in your life 24/7, because that's not going to be healthy for her. Regardless of how it affects you, I don't really care. That's going to be healthy for her because she's not going to be able to heal, because she's going to get constantly triggered with all the bullshit that you have inside your phone. But it's also a piece that if you want to establish honesty in your relationship, you need to break the habit. You're like, this is my private stuff. You can't look at it. Yeah, that's not a relationship, and she should leave you right now because you're an immature asshole that actually can't deal with being truthful and honest. So you should have a wife that actually leaves you if you can't even show her your phone. But these are habits that you have to break. Like, if you're not willing to actually break these habits, then you're saying, hey, I don't care about my relationship. I don't want this relationship. I don't want to build trust. And I want to keep doing the same stuff that I'm doing. That's great. Keep doing that, and she can leave you and go find someone that actually cares and actually loves her. But you're like, but I love her. No, you don't. Because love has actions. Love has a responsibility to show up in a different way. I convinced myself for a lot of times that I loved all these different women that I cheated with. But I didn't love them because I didn't actually value them to the point of having a commitment. I didn't love my wife because I didn't value her to having a commitment. I didn't value them to the point of having honesty, full-blown honesty and vulnerability. I didn't have that. I told myself I had that, but I didn't, because I lied to myself before I lied to everybody else. Convincing myself that it was okay, convincing myself that it was a good idea. So you might be at a place, you have to be able to give full access to your phone. Location, phone, everything. Because the habits of you hiding stuff has led you to the place of cheating. Maybe you have to get rid of all the pornography. You have to make sure there's no way that you can step back into the addictive things you've been in that have left you stuck and left you going back to toxic things that haven't let you actually connect with your wife. You're like, okay, I need to let go of that. Maybe it's a piece we need to let go of the lying, because you keep lying, and every time you lie, you die. You die inside of a pit. You die inside of the night, and you're like, hey, I'm going to lie about this, and it'll make me feel better in the moment. But the reality is it doesn't do anything. It just has you shrivel up internally. And you're wondering, how do I actually move forward? How do I actually do this? And instead, you just have shame and guilt, and you keep putting it on yourself over and over. You might have to stop talking to other women. Like, making sure that you actually setting a precedent of saying, I'm no longer going to talk to the opposite sex because I have a habit of cheating. I have a habit of building an emotional connection with another woman. Stop talking to other women about your relationship, about your wife, about issues that are happening, because all you're doing is you're implanting seeds in that relationship. You're starting a relationship with someone else because you're using your wife as fodder to be able to say, hey, yeah, this is really struggling. And they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And you're like, yep. Feed me the emotional stuff because I can't get it from my wife because I'm not a man who's willing to be honest with her. Now, you need to understand there's habits that have to break in order for cheating to stop. Otherwise, don't say that you don't want to stop cheating. Don't say that you actually want to change if you're not willing to adjust the habits. It's like someone who's saying, hey, I want to get fit, but they're not willing to do the healthy things. They're like, I want to get fit, but I'm going to keep drinking the energy. I want to get fit, but I'm not going to actually exercise. I want to get fit, but I'm not going to actually do the work. I'm not going to actually focus on my meal prep or my meal diet. I might get a jab and make me lose weight, but I'm not actually going to do the hard work to shift myself internally. I'll get temporary fixes, but I won't get long-term change and transformation simply because I'm not willing to do the work. Same thing inside of cheating. If you're not actually willing to do the work and shift who you are with all of these habits and all these changes that need to happen inside of your life, nothing's going to change. It's going to be the same dead end relationship over and over and over until you decide to actually shift something. So if you're a guy and you're still watching this and you're still like, okay, I resonate with this and I don't want this anymore, then I want you to go to rawmotivations.com. There's a breakthrough call for men. You can click and you can watch the video and you can fill an application. Let's talk. Because if this resonates and you actually want something different than the life that you have, I want to show you how you can actually change it. How you can actually fix who you are, shift your reality, and be able to help establish the relationship and the connection that you've always wanted, but you're actually not sure how to get. If I can help you with that, go to rawmotivations.com, click on the breakthrough call for men, and let's talk today. Do you feel like you're in competition with your daughter to be able to get his attention? Do you feel like your kids might be a higher priority to the toxic guy in your life than you might be? Do you feel like there's someone else in his life that right now you have to vie for his attention? Being like, wait a second, do you see me? I'm over here. I'm your wife. I'm your partner. I'm the person that's in your life that should be the most important, but for some reason, he's got his attention elsewhere. I want to talk to you today about triangulation and some of the manipulative tactics that narcissists are using to be able to leave you stuck, tied in a toxic relationship, not able to actually heal and move forward for you. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel, turned abuse recovery coach to help you actually break free from the toxic relationship that you're stuck in. If you're unsure how to be able to heal, how to be able to move forward, how to be able to find you, your purpose, and your vision again of who you actually are, go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk on how to be able to help you heal and grow and develop you. When we talk through this piece of triangulation, oftentimes you're going to find the narcissist that will bring a third person or a third party or different people in as the third person inside of this triangle aspect. Now, the triangle aspect is the idea of you have the narcissist, and you have a third person. Okay, so if you connect all the points, you got three people, you got 3 points, you have a triangle. Inside of this triangulation, there's multiple aspects and there's multiple facets to it. We might not be able to cover every single aspect of it, but I want to touch on some of the pieces. One of the ones that we'll see is a narcissist that will use the kids to triangulate you. This could be the kids to be able to pit them against you. This could be where you start to have distrust with the kids. This could also lead to parental alienation, where the kids actually don't even talk to you anymore because they think that you're the toxic one. What he's doing inside of there is he's doing a term called triangulation, pitting other people against each other. Now, you can think of this in one term of, you might have heard the phrase of like divide and conquer, right? He's like dividing two people so he can conquer both of them. So he can make sure that he wins because he keeps people confused, lost, alone, and isolated from each other so they don't talk, so they don't get to a place where it's actually in a healed environment. So you might have an aspect where you're talking to the narcissist and he's talking to the kids. And as a result, he's telling the kids and he's painting a story and a version of reality that paints you as the abuser. And all the while you're trying to communicate to him, he's telling you that you're the abuser. Then all of a sudden the kids come back and they're like, yeah, mom, you're the abuser. And you're like, wait a second, what's going on? Then you start to see that there's a manipulation, like a layered effect, where he starts to use the kids to try to be able to influence and be able to actually gaslight you even more. There's a manipulation piece. Now, there might be different pieces where you have interactions with the kids and he has interactions with the kids and he sells you a different version of reality. He tells you how the kids did this or the kids didn't do that. And then it starts to frame your ideology about the kids. It starts to frame what you think or how you respond. He might give you a half-truth so that you go off and you're like upset. You're like, I can't believe you do that. And the kid's like, what are you talking about? I didn't do that. But all it does is it fosters this piece of distrust. And it starts to break you and the kids apart from each other. Now, one of the fallacies that happens inside the manipulation of being in a toxic relationship is you actually sticking up for him. Now, what do I mean by that? Because you're like, I've been in the abuse. Why would I do that? You start to stick up for him by actually lying to the kids. And one of the easiest ways that you do this is you start to minimize the abuse that's happening. It's also another aspect of this manipulation that happens where he keeps manipulating you. And because you feel shame and guilt, you want to hide it and suppress it and protect the kids. But ultimately what you do is you sell the kids a version of reality that dad's a good guy. And then all of a sudden when shit hits the fan and their family falls apart, they blame you. And they blame you because you weren't honest with them. They blame you because they had no clue. They blame you because they get used to being in a toxic environment, feeling the toxic energy, sometimes getting to the place where they're abused mentally and emotionally and physically, and they blame you because you're the one that minimized it. This is one of the fallacies, one of the problems of moms that actually stay in toxic relationships thinking, well, I'm doing it for the kids. You're actually doing it for yourself, to avoid shame, to avoid guilt, to avoid the problem, to avoid confrontation. You're not doing it for the kids. Because in reality, when a kid is around a narcissistic person over a period of time, it erodes their sense of self, it hurts their ego, and they have a high propensity of becoming a narcissist or getting codependent where they go and they marry a narcissist anyways. So we need to back up and understand this piece of manipulation is going to go all different levels and all different aspects. So with the kids, it's going to get really confusing because there's going to be a triangulation effect where he's going to talk to you about one thing, talk to the kids about one thing, try to pit each other against. Oftentimes he'll use this to try to get to a place where he has you parental alienated, where the kids don't talk to you anymore. They're like, mom is toxic. She lied to us all these years. She keeps reacting. She keeps yelling. She keeps responding that way, all because of his poking and prodding and creating a reactive abuse environment where he made you act crazy. And then as a result, you're telling the kids, yeah, see, mom, she's kind of having a hard time. I think she might be a little crazy today. He's slowly implanting ideas that are going to splinter and segue away people inside of relationships. So oftentimes you'll see this inside of the family and inside of with the kids. You're going to see this sometimes with other people. One of the common ones is you might see this with a coworker. You might see this with another family member. You might see this with another woman. Like he's got another woman and he's actually brought her around. And what he's done is he's communicated to that woman about how you're not a very good wife. How like he's actually a victim in the relationship. But he might have brought her around to kind of interact with you. And then you kind of had this like vibe of like, oh, I'm kind of worried about him. Like, is he cheating on me? Like, what's going on? And then he's like telling you like, no, like she would never do this. Like, I don't even like her that way. He's triangulating. He's putting two different stories, two different versions of reality to try to be able to split, to try to be able to separate, and I'll try to be able to control other people. Now, he could use this in a way to be able to get more attention. So he could interact with coworkers and friends, and he could interact a certain way, and you see that, and you're like, wait a second, like he doesn't show up like that for me. Then he comes to the home, and he comes to interact with you, and he doesn't show up that way, and you're like, well, what do I need to do? And so you raise the bar. You try to show up better. Like, well, maybe if I do my hair better, maybe if I dress up, maybe if I act better, maybe if I work out, maybe if I shift my body, all these things, you start to modify you to try to be, like, have him pay attention. But the problem in the reality is he's not paying attention because he doesn't actually care. He's not actually looking at you for the outward piece of like, oh, here's someone that loves and cares about me and is showing that. He cares about like, what is he going to get for himself? And how does he keep getting over and over and over again? You see, my wife went through a period of time where she tried to adjust everything about herself. She tried to adjust how she dressed, tried to adjust her hair, tried to adjust like all different pieces of her that she tried to modify. And the reason she tried to modify it because she kept doubting herself, wondering, why does he pay more attention to other women? Why does he pay more attention to other people? Why does he pay more attention to work? Why does he pay more attention to all these other things? So she tried to adjust who she was. And when she tried to adjust who she was, she started to lose her reality of who she was. She started to lose the version of her that she actually loved and cared about. There's a piece of her that got lost inside of the translation of her trying to figure out, how do I make him see me? Reality was one of the hardest things for her. And one of the hardest things, again, to be able to find herself again. To bring herself back from a place where she was no longer looking to serve and try to make me see her. But instead, she was trying to have herself see her own self. Who she actually was. Inside of this, I want you to consider that there's a relationship in your life that he might be using to manipulate you. To get more attention, to get more affection, to get more sex, to get like whatever it might be. To get more money. He might be using you to try to be able to pit you against someone else, to try to be able to manipulate and control who you are and how you actually show up. This piece is huge. Because what you'll find over a period of time is he'll manipulate you to such a degree that you just stay confused. I want you to consider for a moment, this came up inside of our Thriver coaching call the other night. The simple aspect that he doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to win an argument. He doesn't have to look like the best guy when he comes home. He doesn't really have to provide. He doesn't really have to do anything except one thing. Keep you in a fog. Because if he can keep you in a fog, you won't make a decision. You won't actually leave. You won't actually heal. You won't actually work on you because you're too confused. What do I do? You're too confused. Is it me? Is it him? Why am I in this situation? And you'll spiral out. That'll leave you in a victimhood mindset. That'll be like, everything's happening to me. I can't figure this out. And the more you proclaim that over yourself, the more it actually becomes a reality. Because it leaves you stuck mentally and emotionally, not sure how to be able to heal, not sure how to be able to move forward. The triangulation is going to be a very difficult piece, pitting you against another person. Oftentimes, that person and you might have never even talked. You might not even have a clue about that person. And then you're like, well, wait a second. What's their problem with me? You're going to see this inside the relationship when you get into a relationship with a narcissist, and he kind of like pre-frames people in his past. Hey, just so you know, the last relationship I was in, she was really toxic. So she might reach out saying that I was the toxic one because she's hurt and she can't really deal with it. You're going to see different things. He's going to pre-frame other people that you never even met before. But he's going to do this so that he can actually be in control. He can triangulate you against the other person, and he can control the narrative. What he's trying to control inside of this is not you, is not the other person. It's the narrative. It's who he actually is. He's trying to control everybody's impression and vision of who he actually is so he can feel better about himself. Because if he had to pull back the cover and actually see who he actually is, he'd run away. Because he doesn't want to admit that he's a monster. He doesn't want to admit that he's an asshole. He doesn't want to admit that he's a person that keeps abusing and using you over and over and over again. The hard part is you might be watching this and you don't want to admit that it's been happening either. And as a result, it's left you stuck far longer than you actually want to be. Not because you don't know what to do, but because you're simply just confused. Like there's a piece of you that just feels like you're in a fog, mentally and emotionally. You just feel drained, not sure the next steps, not sure how to be able to heal. But inside of all of this, I want to invite you to an opportunity for you to be able to heal fully without confronting with him, without dealing with him, but by focusing on you, your healing, your growth, your development. I want you to go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. It's an opportunity for you to see a video from me, hear what I do. And if it resonates, click forward, fill an application, and schedule a call. Because I want to help you break free once and for all from the toxicity that you're currently struggling in right now.